because we got a lot of people here. We want to respect their time. So Trustee Gillis is on her way. Again, well, welcome everyone to our regularly scheduled meeting on August 28th. I'd like to ask the clerk to please take the roll call.
Trustee Bachner.
Here.
Trustee Gillis. Trustee Vasquez. Here. Trustee Brennan. Here. Trustee Johnson.
Here.
Trustee O'Connell.
Here.
President Adduci.
Here. Okay, if I can ask everyone to stand if possible to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have the citizens' comment, so Luke is going to grab it. And I think we really don't have any. Okay, thanks. See if there's any general comments. I'll ask the citizen who wants just to make a general comment to come up and speak. If it's for a particular subject, then I'd ask you, if you don't mind, we'll wait for that subject so that it's more relevant for the trustees. So let me just take a peek at this. Well, we got phone numbers versus subjects. So I'm going to assume most of this is there any general comment that anybody wants to make? Somehow we got phone numbers versus subject on here. Okay, I don't see any general questions or comments, so we'll go ahead and wait till we get to the traffic and safety issue, which I'm sure everyone has comments on, and the Lake and Lathrop issue, which I'm sure everyone has comments on too. So I will then now move to item 4, which is elected official comments and announcements. And while we're waiting for Trustee Gillis, why don't we start with you, Trustee O'Connell?
Thanks. I only have one thing tonight. I know we went through this several months ago relative to approving a plan for the Park District. And if you haven't walked through the park lately, Keystone Park, it really looks great, and they did a really phenomenal job. And I want to just extend my congratulations to the Park District and the Park Board for their work on Keystone Park, because it's really going to, it's really going to be a great asset to our community. So that's all I got for tonight.
Right. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Bob. Trustee John?
I have no comments tonight.
Okay, very good. Trustee Brennan?
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, for being to our meeting. It's nice to see so much engagement.
Might want to turn it on. You too.
Oh, there I am. I just want to welcome everyone and say that it's nice to see so many people engaged and interested in the topics that we're going to be discussing tonight. Also, I wanted to mention that I see it's time to sign up again for e-waste pickup. You have to actively reach out and sign up for it. I did recently, and Jeff, you and I exchanged voicemail messages, so I wanted to ask you about this, but I'm just going to ask it in public. Last time we had e-waste pickup, there was a hiccup. I put my stuff out at the curb. Another party other than LRS picked up my e-waste. And that I was not the only person. There are other people that happened to too, so it's very concerning. So when I signed up for the e-waste this time, I put a note. There was a room to put a note in the details, and I said, is the pickup at the front door area? Last time someone other than LRS picked up my electronic items from the curb. That's very disturbing. Are you picking up from the front door area this time? The postcard I received said it's going to be picked up at the curb. I received a date for the pickup, but no response to this question.
Yeah, the way it's set up is it's curbside. We did make LRS aware of the issues because we were contacted by a few residents that happened to. We're trying to coordinate with them as best as we can, and if we need to try to negotiate something into the contract where they are doing, front door pickup, that's just a bigger conversation we need to have with them. But for right now, for this current pickup, it is going to be curbside again, and we're just gonna. We've been working with them to try to make sure they're on top of these things a little bit more and a little bit quicker with the pickup so that we don't have those issues again.
I can't remember what time the person came, but it was early.
Sure.
They knew about our pickup dates.
And that's the problem. I think some people are probably scavengers are seeing the postcards or getting them somehow and just know when the stuff is going to be placed out, and so they're making the rounds through. But short of working with LRS to get the stuff as early as we can, that's where we're at right now.
Okay, the only thing I'll mention is that I think I had a conversation with a sustainability person at Oak Park, and I think they've negotiated to have them pick it up at the door, not at the doorstep, not the curb.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is that all, Kenny?
Yes,
Yep,
I'm-
okay,
yes.
very good. John?
Nothing new to add, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We haven't met since early July, so I wanted to catch up with a couple things. First of all, I wanted to give a shout out to Rosie and the village staff here for, again, achieving a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. That came after our last board meeting, so I did want to give a shout out to our staff for that. Also, on July the 20th, the mayor's Caucus on Age-Friendly Communities Collaborative met on July the 20th, which Kathy Aducci chairs for the mayor MMC. Again, the theme of that was aging in the changing region and introducing some other municipalities who joined the caucus that continues to grow. And so we're at various stages in terms of developing our age-friendly communities. And so it was a good way to reach out and try to connect with the newer members to try to answer any questions they may have and work together as mentoring some of them, the villages, as well as learning from other villages, because we're all doing different things. So, and Kathy, I don't know if you're going to talk more about that with that. But also, last but not least, I'll congratulate the village and Kathy we received a county grant to make ADA improvements. I know that was a focus, at least from the age-friendly ad hoc committee that we had. That was one of the issues that our residents here wanted us to focus on, so this will be a great improvement, at least meeting, although it was a good intent for our seniors, but really making sidewalks and crosswalks accessible is a benefit to all of us, whether we're disabled or non-disabled or regular people. So congratulations on that.
Yep.
So
Thanks.
that's it, and have a happy and safe Labor Day weekend coming up.
Okay, thank you. Liz?
Hello, I have no comments.
Okay. Trustee Bachner?
I'd like to begin with the land acknowledgements. So as we begin, we are mindful that we hold these meetings on lands that was once and still inhabited by indigenous people, including the Ojibwa, the Chippewa, Menominee, Potawatomi nations, and more. We will remember our nation's history and honor the Native people as stewards of this land that was once colonized, and that River Forest continues to be a place many people from diverse backgrounds live and gather. And other than that, I have no additional comments.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'll make mine brief. I echo what Rez said. We we received $100,000 from Cook County. I was also in a meeting with Congressman Davis and State Representative Camille Lilly and Senate President Harmon today, and both River Forest, Oak Park, and Broadview were awarded a $300,000 grant from the USDA, federal government, for our efforts in sustainability. So the whole effort between the Cross-Community Climate Collaborative, which we call C4, which is a partnership between really 15 regional communities here in the western suburbs, which started with us in Oak Park and Broadview, are growing exponentially, and we're getting a lot of good grants. I think we're over $1 million in grant money that we've received for our efforts in sustainability. So clearly there's a climate issue going on with the weather changes that we see, so this is something that we'll stay focused on for the time to come. I also want to welcome Jessica Spencer, our new village assistant village manager. This is your first meeting. Welcome to our team. You'll see government working in its best effort here tonight. Also, we, River Forest, hosted the Illinois Municipal League summer meeting, and we hosted over 50 mayors to our community. They saw our beautiful homes. They took an architectural tour. They visited River Forest Chocolates, some of our businesses. So we're really happy that we got to show off our beautiful town here. And I believe all the mayors really enjoyed their time here in River Forest. So again, as Rez said, happy Labor Day to everybody. We won't see you until September 11th, which is the lemonade stand. So don't forget to put that on your calendar to visit Lemonade on September 11th. I believe that, right, Katie, starts at 3 and goes to 7, something like that?
Yep, every year.
Every year, regardless of the day, right? So, all right,
Well,
that's all.
yeah, always 9/11.
Now it's 9/11. Okay, so that's end of my comments. We'll go ahead and go to the consent agenda, but I want to double check with you, JD. You just said concerns. Do you have a particular concern, or is this a general comment?
I've got about 4 or 5.
Okay, do you want to speak now or at a particular item?
They don't relate to what's on the agenda.
Okay, then please take the podium. Thanks.
I'm John Zazuriak, and thanks for all you guys do for trying to make our village what it is. One of the things I'd like to know, if we could have, there's a lot of litter between Park Avenue and Keystone along Hawthorne. Could you guys provide some kind of garbage container, put it on the north side of Hawthorne, somewhere between those two? There's a lot of cross traffic, a lot of litter, and I'm one of the guys that, I'm not told to do this, but I just, pick up the litter when I find it and see it, and it'd be nice if you guys could maybe provide some kind of trash container along there.
I think that's a reasonable request. I know we've.
And I'd say put it on the north side of
Right.
Hawthorne, so it doesn't interfere with traffic turning
Yep.
east or west off of any of those streets.
Yep.
Put it on one of those corners, cars are gonna be coming east and west, and the
Makes sense.
traffic may be trying to, a car may be trying to turn east or west.
Yes.
and it would block visibility.
Yep. Understood. Reasonable request.
Noticeable, I think, on our end of town. You mentioned you got this $300,000 grant, and I've been reading in the paper, maybe some of that money can be used to put up no litter signs. I know that,
Sure.
I see a lot of plastic bottles people dispose of on the streets, even in the village parks and in the various areas around town.
Sure.
Maybe if you took down some of these bike route signs that I don't think they will necessarily follow anyway, you could put a no litter sign, might be a little effective. Years ago, when I was in Buffalo, New York, they have an ordinance, they have a regulation where if you litter, and you get caught disposing of plastic bottles, you can be fined. And this was back in 2016, I want to say. I never saw a plastic bottle anywhere on any of the curbs or streets or sidewalks. So maybe you guys can put together an ordinance. I mean, we don't need more government, we need less government in many ways, but in the same sense, maybe this would help, cut down on some of the litter. Only about 5% of plastic, I think, gets recycled anyway. And the more we can recycle, the better, the more we can get thrown away.
Excuse me, sir, could you hit the mute button and turn the microphone on? The people on Zoom are struggling. It's on the black microphone.
All right.
Yes. They can't hear it at home. You just have to tap it once, and the green light should
There's
come
no
on.
green button, the green button's already lit.
Oh, then maybe speak louder in the
Okay.
microphone.
All right. Thanks, man. Okay. All right. Lucky you, huh? Another thing that I do around town, I do a lot of bicycling. In fact, years ago, I came to this board meeting and I asked for a bike rack to be put up when Mr. Biondo was one of the he was the village administrator, and within a week or two, the bike rack appeared in front. But I'm wondering if we could be, once I'm going back to this bike route sign, but I'm wondering, what if I ride a bike on a street that doesn't have a bike route sign? What's the circumstances? What's going to happen to me? Anything?
Hope
Because
not. I mean, hopefully you're safely riding your bike with a helmet. But I think you can ride anywhere, right, on a bike.
so
It
what's the
doesn't have to
purpose
be
of the
bike.
signs if I can ride anywhere?
Well, I think we try to keep people in certain bike lanes. That's the hope, is that you ride through our community in a bike lane. But if you say, hey, I live off a bike lane, then yeah, of course you can't ride in a bike lane. But I don't know of any other reason why not.
Well, I mean, I think part of the idea was when you guys were planning all of this, you got a grant, and you actually were going to put up, I think, 90 signs. I think you only put up about 50 signs.
Right.
And,
That's because we had pushback on the 90 signs.
well, and understandably so, but nonetheless, it just seems, that I don't know what purpose they really serve, because I don't think a lot of people really followed
where they ride. They don't stop at stop signs, they don't use hand signals.
Okay.
You know, has it created a safety issue? Are the children safer going to school by using bike routes? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there any collection of data that signifies less or more
I don't know if we have collection of data. I don't know if the school does.
bike
but-
accidents
yeah.
or non-bike
Yeah,
accidents?
well, we do collect that. We know the bike accidents through our police department, and so we know that you need to wear a helmet, and we know that, yeah, you certainly should know the rules of the road on a bike, like bike signals and turning and so forth.
But the bike helmet is not mandatory. I mean, that's personally suggested, isn't that? I mean, it's not a
Well,
state law
for
or River
children
Forest
under
regulation?
16 and below, it's an ordinance in our town, so it is mandatory. For adults or young adults,
I've been
no.
riding since then. Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, so many. One thing I would like to see if you guys can try to improve. There's lots of catch basins and there's drain covers, and a lot of those have horizontal slots. Could those drain covers be realigned so they're not parallel with the street? So if you ride over one of those drain covers, your bike tire wouldn't get caught in the horizontal slot of a, you know,
Yeah, I don't know.
if they're round covers, you can switch, you can turn the direction, obviously, but if it's a horizontal drain cover, you may not be able to, but for a bike safety issue. Okay,
We'll have to look at that. How to work.
okay, now I've got some concerns about construction, what goes on or what doesn't go on. Just this past week, I was down at where the work is being done at Washington Park, and they were cutting brick pavers, and the Village of River Forest, you know, in the generalized information, they want you to use water to cut the bricks, so that there's less airborne pollution and so forth, and there's been 2 other times that I've seen this work being done, not in the public park, but by and large, I don't think our inspectors are out watching these things close enough. Maybe the vendor knows, but the people that are actually doing the work for the vendors aren't aware that they should be using a water hose when they're cutting the brick pavers. And the folks did, but as a resident, I had to go up and suggest to the workers, you know, we have a regulation in River Forest where we'd like you to use, you know, a water saw or a hose attached to the saw when you're cutting brick pavers.
Yeah. Yeah, we agree with everything you said, and, you know, the best thing we can do is to continue to educate our residents about the requirement of using water.
And maybe you could even put some of these things in your monthly, weekly,
Yep,
you know,
will do.
newsletter.
Yep, I just wrote that down.
To
so,
make some
yes.
people, you know, aware.
Yep.
You know, and even like, it's a subtle thing, but sometimes the construction traffic
Yep.
doesn't park on the correct side of the street, or they block a driveway.
Right.
I mean, I've had that happen, and at a certain point, I'm at the point where I think sometimes residents should be we should get reparations for some of the construction that goes on and for some of the disturbances that we encounter when all this is happening. You know, it can be real disturbing, especially if you don't necessarily have your windows closed and there's jackhammers going and there's just, you know, just on and on. I've had a couple, you know, situations and I've gone to and then sometimes they don't even follow the regulational times that they're supposed to work. I've gone up to the contractor and I've said, you know, you were supposed to stop at 6 o'clock on a weekday, and here it is, you know, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and they're still, you know, working on their project.
Yeah.
I think we need more enforcement. We need more inspectors out there, you know, for what the vendors are supposed to be paying for these permits. I don't think enough is being inspected.
Yeah, okay. Duly noted. I mean, we talk about inspection a lot, so, okay. Anything else? I'm trying to get to 5 minutes,
Yep,
because if
well,
we get over it, we have
I
no
was
time
real
for everybody
surprised
else.
when you guys are passing out free frisbees at the Memorial Day parade. You know, years ago, we had a safety concern. You weren't supposed to throw anything from the cars, and here the village is throwing out these frisbees as they're driving down the street. And it's a cute promotion, but I just thought there was a big safety factor issue that you folks were totally ignoring. And people were running out in the street trying to get these things, and that's what they don't want to have happen on those kinds of situations. So I think I was just real surprised that you did that as a community. And then I've noticed also that supposedly you might be approving a payment tonight to buy a new 2023 police vehicle. I'm not quite clear on this, but once again, this is a subtle detail, but there are floor mats in the old vehicle that got damaged and destroyed. Couldn't you bring those floor mats into the new vehicle? Because they're both the same vehicle, supposedly. You might be able to save $125 by just transferring the old floor mats to the new vehicle.
I'm going to guess that, huh? There's no floor mats. No floor mats, there you go.
They're built in.
Well, just the way that the information was posted online, I may have got the impression that you're gonna get new floor mats, and I thought, maybe you can get something else instead of the floor mats.
We took as much out of the vehicle as we could that was totaled.
Yeah.
And also, the vehicle, like with any new vehicles, you have an option of floor mats or ones that are built into the car. I'm sure a lot of people here are aware of that have purchased the car lately, so that would be why the floor mats aren't removed from the car and put into another.
Okay. All right, thank you, John. All right, so that, I think, covers general comments, unless somebody else had a general comment not related to the two items on the agenda. All right, so let's move on to the village consent agenda, item number 5. If I can get a motion and a second to move and approve item 5A through,
T. Motion to approve consent agenda items A through T.
Second?
okay. Any comments or questions regarding any of these items? Hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to please read each item and then take the vote.
Consent agenda, item A, Village Board of Trustee meeting minutes, July 10th, 2023. B, Village Board of Trustee executive session minutes, July 10th, 2023. Accounts payable, July 2023, $1,865,644.97. D, financial report, June 2023. E, financial report, July 2023. F, administration department report. G, monthly department reports. H, National Rail Safety Week proclamation. I, award of contract, 2023 permeable paver maintenance project, $79,339.01. J, award of contract, 2023 salt shed construction project, $48,750. K, authorization to sell surplus village property, squad number 14 Ford Explorer, 2016 police pursuit ordinance. L, award of contract, 2023 Dodge Charger, $35,744. M, award of contract, 2023 Dodge Durango, $68,790. N, award of contract, 2023 Ford F-150 Responders, $137,580. O, change order, 2023 curb and sidewalk project, $5,466 resolution. P, a right-of-way encroachment waiver and agreement for an irrigation system in the public right-of-way with the property owners at 1500 William. Q, a right-of-way encroachment waiver and agreement for an irrigation system in the public right-of-way with the property owners at 706 Monroe. R, a right-of-way encroachment waiver and agreement for an irrigation system in the public right-of-way with the property owners at 911 Lathrop. S, a right-of-way encroachment waiver and agreement for an irrigation system in the public right-of-way with the property owners at 558 Lathrop. T, a right-of-way encroachment waiver and agreement for an irrigation system in the public right-of-way with the property owners at 318 Gale. Trustee Gillis?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez?
Yes.
Trustee Brennan?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson?
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell? Trustee Bachner?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, John. All right, we have no items for the consent items on a separate consideration, so we'll move right ahead to the recommendations of boards, commissions, and committees. Now, we have a Traffic and Safety Commission recommendations that were dated July 19th. We're going to move each one of these, I think, separately is what you want me to do, and second it. But maybe at this point in time, I'm going to ask for public comment, and I'm going to guess. So if I miss you, please let me know, because instead of the subject line, I'm going to put their phone number. So I'm just going to guess by your address what the topic might be. So I think Dan, who lives at 1400 Bonnie Bray. Are you for traffic and safety issue? Okay, if you don't mind. And as
Kathy,
he
do we need
coming-
to have a motion first before
Well, we can do, but there's 4 of them, that's the thing, Katie, so we have to, we could do all 4 if you like.
There's 7, I think. No?
Let's do public comment first.
Yeah, I think we would do public comment. Yeah.
We can talk about everything.
There's 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
So, okay, just before you start, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask everyone, please, if you could keep your remarks to 5 minutes. I know that seems, or less, preferably less, or I will stop you and ask you to stop. I know that seems maybe too regiment, but otherwise, we're here until midnight and nobody gets their point across. And I also asked if the point that you want to make has already been made, just say that this point has been already made and I agree with it, or something to that effect, so that we get your point of view. We don't want to lose it, but we also don't want to hear it, many times. And then I asked you to be succinct, please. Only because if you're not, then chances are you're going to lose all of us anyway, because we're thinking about something else. So if you're succinct and to the point, your message will get really loud and clear to us. So I appreciate that. So, Dan.
Thank you. Dan Waslick, 1400 Bonnie Bray. Thanks for your time. Yes, so very quickly, I am for all the current temporary structures for traffic mitigation in the northeast corridor of River Forest. I've been up here a few times, so I'm not going to go through all the points. You've heard all of them already, but I just want to reiterate that I believe strongly that the mitigation efforts, although temporary so far, that they have helped increase safety in the neighborhood. That's of utmost importance for me. I believe that they should be made permanent. There is traffic mitigation efforts and structures in the northwest corridor of our suburb and the surrounding suburbs. It's important that we have these mitigation efforts because of the heavy traffic along North and Harlem. There's a lot of officers here. They are probably well aware that before the structures were in place, there's a lot of dangerous left turns onto and off of Harlem, onto Greenfield and Lemoyne, and cross traffic from Oak Park to River Forest. And beyond that, there is a lot of sporting events in the Fenwick practice fields. Greenfield, I would say especially, is a popular route for kids going to and from school. And I believe strongly that these efforts have helped improve safety. So I'm asking you just to do what's in the best interest of the suburb and best interest of safety and make these barriers permanent. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Next up is GN. I don't know. Oh, my God. How, you're now abbreviating your name. Oh, okay, good enough. But it could be Dr. GN, too. I'm sorry? You could be Dr. GN, too.
No, just GN.
Okay.
Anyway, so I have here, I'm going to pass this around, so I will go faster.
Fair enough.
Because, can you please pass them one each? And there are like 5 slides. And then I also have this, but I doubt that the trustee down there can read it, so I asked this gentleman to please hold this for me. Okay? No, thank you. Please. Please. So what I'm going to do very, very quickly is to go through the major reasons why the barriers were installed. 1, cut-through traffic leading to excessive car traffic on Bonnie Bray and Clinton, and loss of drivers and pedestrian safety. 2, gasoline trucks to the service station and the smell of gasoline, which some residents find offensive. 3, 4-year-old children playing in their street. So these were the reasons. I mean, maybe there were more reasons, but coming to the meetings, these were the reasons I heard most often. Well, hold on. So the first, the cut-through traffic is definitely very valid. Gasoline trucks to the service station and the other one are less valid because if the, if the village is going to close all the streets where are 4 years old playing, there will be no street open. And as for the gasoline trucks, they've been there forever, so people before buying a house should make sure where the house is located. So the next one and the next slides, I give you the reason why actually the barrier should be taken down. First one, the percent of residents who oppose them is the vast majority. It's a super majority, they would say in Congress, but, and here, overwhelming majority. But anyway, so, and this can be seen in 3 different ways. One, all of you encouraged us to take a survey. And I went through all the answers in the survey, and 72% of those who answered this question were against the barrier, 72%. Secondly, I've been at this meeting since February, and I counted, I went over, all the meeting minutes, and I counted all the speakers in favor, all the speakers against the barrier, and these are data available to each one of us, and 75% of those who expressed an opinion are against. I did the same thing for the traffic safety meeting, and 74% of those who spoke at the meeting were against the barrier. Now, so this is the second reason. Yes, please. The third reason why the barrier should be removed is because they were actually installed on the streets with the lowest and the safest traffic. And how do we know that? We know that, and everyone would know that, if we just look at the KLOA report. And I wrote here the streets, okay? Monroe, William, Clinton, and Bonnie Bray. And this is the daily number of cars, the burden of cars on each street. So we have that Bonnie Bray and the gentleman before complain about the high traffic. It is actually almost half of the traffic on Monroe. And Clinton is about 1/3 of the traffic on Monroe. And Bonnie Bray is 20% less than William. And Clinton is 40% less than William. So my question is, why the barriers were placed on Clinton and Bonnie Bray? Because intuitively, it doesn't really make much sense. You wanted to close the streets with a higher traffic, not the streets with the lowest and safest traffic. And another thing is that if you block Clinton and Bonnie Bray, intuitively, some of these cars will go to Monroe and William, and will therefore increase the burden of traffic on these 2 streets. And in fact, we have heard many residents complaining of more traffic on William and on Monroe. And a couple of months ago, the village made a very short, very small study to see whether indeed there is any difference in traffic on William and Monroe. So these are the traffic as they were before, and the village, and these are the village's data, okay? Not a company, not anecdotal evidence. These are the village's own data. So the village reported that the traffic on Monroe, after the barriers were installed, went up to 73%, from 0 to 73% in the peak traffic hour. William went up 67 to 300%.
We're at over 5 minutes now, so if
Yes.
you can hurry
Well,
up. Thank you.
Clinton, significant. Bonnie Bray, not measured. So now the traffic on Monroe and William is above what the Illinois Department of Transportation considers safe.
I'm going to ask you to please come to a conclusion in the 30
Well,
seconds, if
the
you don't mind.
conclusion, yes.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, take her 5 minutes. Fair enough. I'm fine. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kate. So in any way, my conclusion on this one is that the barriers, the traffic on Monroe and William Streets are now above the safety. And we have been talking about safety and mitigation and safety. Well, guess what? The barrier actually did not make it safer for these 2 streets. And as for mitigation, is there any mitigation in the cut to traffic? No, there isn't. And again, these are the numbers, and the numbers do not lie. And how can I say that? Because I add up these numbers, and approximately these numbers are 3,000. Approximately, a little bit, I don't know. I mean, I didn't really. And now take the average of what the traffic is now every day on Monroe and the average of what the traffic is now on William every day. Make this, add the average and you end up with what? With 3,000. So, I'm sorry. What happened is that the barrier had pushed the traffic from Clinton and Bonnie Bray onto Monroe and William. There is no mitigation. The cars are still there. And you can look at the numbers. Numbers do not lie. Numbers are not anecdotal evidence, okay? So,
Okay.
oh, no, wait a second. There is another thing, actually, that I want to say. You know, I read the report of the village, where the one that was made a couple of months ago, and the village said that, yes, recognized that on William, now the traffic went up at 300%. However, the village said that, yes, it went up at 300%, but it's okay because, and I'm quoting now, the traffic before was extremely low. So the village said that on William, before the barriers were installed, the traffic was extremely low. This one was extremely low according to the village. And you can read the report of the village. This is what it said. So my question to you, ladies and gentlemen, if this traffic was extremely low, what about the Clinton and Bonnie Bray, which were respectively 40% and 20% lower? Then the traffic over there was extremely, extremely low. Can you please go to the next one? So,
2 more minutes.
yes, 1 minute, I'm almost there.
Okie dokie.
So, to summarize, okay, the traffic on William and Monroe exceeds safety limit. Thanks to the barriers. Traffic on the alleys is dangerous, again, thanks to the barriers. In winter, snow trucks cannot clean well around the barriers and ice forms on the ground, and this is a danger. And then, you know, the gentleman before spoke about accidents. So let me say something about accident. Paragraph number 4. In the last 4 years before the barriers were installed, there were no reported accidents on Greenfield.
Please
at
give some
Harlem.
respect to the
And
speaker.
I'm talking about Greenfield. In July, 9 months after the barriers were installed, an accident was reported to the police department at that junction. So much for accident. And finally, cut-through traffic is not reduced. So, this one, and which is the most important. I would like to know why exactly was all this done? What are the benefits of the barriers? I really wish that someone here would explain to me what are the barriers. I showed you. Now we have dangerous traffic on 2 streets. Cut-through traffic is still there. There are accidents. So what are the benefits? Could we residents finally have an explanation? And we deserve to know because we live on these streets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. All right. So Kate Byrne? Kate? Oh, that was you. Okay, very good. Sorry, I'm sorry. I thought you said Pat.
No
So
worries.
Pat then is up.
Completely agree with Josefina.
Yep.
I live at 1411 Fifth Place, never had a problem before, and I understand that it's causing more accidents. I've actually seen a lot of traffic back up on Clinton and Greenfield.
Okay. Thank you for being succinct. So Pat,
Yes, I'm here already.
okay.
Yes, I am against the barriers being there to begin with, and would certainly want to have them to be taken down. When I'm going towards North Avenue, okay, with the trepidation that it's going to be a lot of traffic, because there always is, I run into the situation where I feel like I'm playing chicken with whoever is going south, okay? And do they get to the barrier first and get to go around, or do I wait for them? And then while we're doing that, 3 or 4 cars will come zipping across the alley, okay? And that was brought up as an issue. That it wasn't an issue that existed before the barriers were put up, the alley. I never ran into a scenario where I was worried about someone broadsiding me as I was crossing the alley, okay? And so my only option, because I can't make a left-hand turn off of anywhere unless I go down to Division to go north on Harlem, north on Harlem. So I have to go over to Williams or over to Monroe to do it, okay?
Yeah.
And that's true for anybody else. You know, it is a whack-a-mole scenario. There's X number of cars and there's X number of streets, okay? So it becomes, you know, safety is more important than convenience. But the point is, the numbers don't support the notion that it's safer when you have an enormous increase in traffic on Williams. That wasn't there before.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pat. Okay, let's see what we got here. Bob? Okay, I got this.
Okay. Hi, I'm Bob Armelis. I live at 1501 Bonnie Bray. Do have a comment about the gasoline. The explosive power of 40,000 pounds of gasoline is, excuse me, on my street, a bit worrisome. As far as the data that was taken on the new study, there was no count taken on North Avenue. The original study by KLA had a count on North Avenue. The traffic is picked up significantly on North Avenue. And without that correlation, that data's, I don't know, in an archaeologist's mind, trash. I'm here tonight to ask the board to vote no to the traffic package removing the barriers at Clinton and North. 90% of the cut-through traffic in the Northeast River Forest is eastbound from North to Harlem. It's getting worse, and removal will make it worse. Taking down the barriers on North and Clinton would be the opposite of what all three neighboring municipalities at Harlem and North intersection have done, and really in the county. Instead of our armor needs to spread to westbound streets, as our neighbors have done, Williams, Monroe, Jackson. Taking down the barriers at Clinton and North is a strong statement, would be a strong statement from the board that residential streets will be sacrificed for commercial interests. I'm talking about that gas truck again, or the antifreeze truck, or garbage trucks cutting through. We are not a truck route. The truck route, and I've got experience in this, is North Avenue and Harlem, but not our residential streets. All of River Forest should be aware of this, especially considering the TIFs on both North and Madison. I'm also asking for the following that our group has been asking for 2 years. Truck ordinance with weight limits on residential streets. Right now we're at 80,000 pounds, which honestly I could run one of my steel trucks through here. Event parking mitigation on Greenfield. School and park speed limit signs on both Greenfield and Lemoyne. Those schools are there. I don't think we need to have 2 more years of meetings to know that there's schools there. Professional solution to cut through traffic problems in the northeast corner. This is beyond us. We need some professional architects. To save some time here, I'd also like to take the opportunity, since I'm up here, to ask the board not to vote for a permit extension on Lake and Lathrop. It's time to put the end to that misery. I put up enough of buildings and I can see what's going on there. So have a nice evening, and please vote no to take those barriers down on North and Clinton. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. All right, I'm sorry, I can't read the name. 1507 Clinton? It's 1507? Yes, sorry. It's handwritten, not printed.
Mary Stamatakos, 1507 Clinton. I'm right on the corner, right there. We've lived there for 42 years, and I can attest to the fact that the traffic has probably quadrupled since we've been there. We have a severely handicapped young man who has a bus that comes every morning to pick him up to take him to school, and I watch the cars speed around him. I watch and I worry that something's going to happen to that boy because we took down one stop sign. So instead of a four-way stop, it's a two-way stop. We have a beautiful family living right across the street from us with two little boys. I don't have statistics. All I know is it's dangerous. We have too much traffic on that street. So thank you to Bob for all the work he's done and all the people that come here tonight to talk in favor of keeping the barriers and putting the stop sign back, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. All right. Balak, I know it looks like you live in Elmwood Park. I'm happy to have you come up and speak. I just don't know what topic. Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Ed Belloc. I am a resident of Elmwood Park, but the fact that I'm in South Elmwood Park and I work in Oak Park, I travel through River Forest a lot. As the other gentleman said, there's St. Vincent's, there's Willard. These are all areas where a lot of kids are traveling through. And keeping these blockades up will keep some of the traffic from going through. A lot of people like to cut through from Harlem all the way to Thatcher so that they can avoid the North Avenue traffic. That's causing increased traffic on those east and west streets, and it's a danger for those children.
Gary Williams? See him? There he is. Okay.
Hey, good evening. Gary Williams. I'm at 7307 Greenfield, right on one of the major east-west thoroughways that it's become. I think we have to just step back a minute and say, I've been involved with this for at least the last 2 or 3 years. And what is the problem? The problem is we have a lot of non-residents that are using local streets to avoid primarily Harlem and North Avenue. And as Bob said earlier, most of the traffic is eastbound. People on North Avenue that don't want to wait for the Harlem light will take whatever street is available, whether the ones that are blockaded or William or Monroe or anything that's not blockaded, and they'll come down to Lemoyne and Greenfield and use those as thoroughfares. I don't know if we've seen, I think originally we saw a decrease in traffic. I think it's increased again. And they speed. We put in the stop sign at William, but from William to Harlem, I count the cars going 40, 50, or faster just to get to Harlem. So there's a lot of traffic and they're speeding. So are the barriers effective? Partially. There's probably more that needs to be done. I think we have to reach the point where it's more inconvenient for the cut-through traffic people to go down to our residential streets than it is to stay on North Avenue. That's probably where we need to get to. So if you put a stop sign in every block, we've asked for one at Clinton. I don't think that's on the agenda. I think there is one at Bonnie Bray that's proposed. That's fine. I would put a stop sign on every cross street on Greenfield and Lemoyne. Make it as inconvenient as possible for all the people that want to cut through. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. All right, let's see that. Thanks, Gary. So Lee Wingo, it's 4th and 5th, I assume that's Elmwood Park? I mean, is there a Lee? There we go. Yep.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, I'm Lee. No, I'm in the northeast corner, and yeah,
Okay.
it's cluttered over there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to get in and out. But I see this as a common and a frustrating municipal overreach. It's a tale as old as Jefferson. You know, this is forcing the people to sacrifice their liberty for the illusion of security. As it's been pointed out, electric cards, it is the illusion of security. We're not changing anything. I do like the suggestions of maybe make it inconvenient, weight restrictions. This is fine, but limiting motion and movement it's not an option. The way this looks and sounds, it's like public servants are attempting to parent the people without any concern for the property values. A lady across the street from me is trying to sell her house. Nobody could get in. They couldn't get in from Google Maps. Nobody could figure it out. You know, how do we, and then, oh, we can only park where? What? It's too inconvenient. It's scaring away business. This municipality, honestly, I mean, if you look at through the ILCS, through the charter, you have control over commerce, state, interstate commerce. That's it, not our travel and motion and movement. It's not even in your authority. Or your territorial jurisdiction. You don't have any territorial jurisdiction over to do this in the first place, so you really can't deploy these things. It's not a point of, you know, at first I wanted to be really hardcore about this, and I demand, and here's what's going on, but that's not the case. I like this community. I don't want to demand anything from anybody. I want everybody to come to knowledge. And we can't sacrifice liberty for security. We know where that road goes. And we're pinned in to the point now where another thing that has to be attached to this is the parenting factor of we have to call in and get permission for grandma to park on the street overnight has to be tied to this. We can't do it. Grandma comes in from Florida, can't figure out how to get in here in the first place. Then we have to call for permission to Daddy GovCorp to say, may grandma park on the street for the evening. It's where do I live at? It's like Weimar. Okay, exaggeration, but it feels like it when grandma's yelling at you, okay? So we have to find a happy medium here. And I don't think putting up barriers and walls amongst our own people is the way to go. And it's easy to get notices of liability on the table because this is affecting, it is affecting commerce. The only thing that you have control over is commerce, and it's stopping everybody from getting to and from work. It's changing the travel times. It's changing the ability for people to buy and sell. It's hurting commerce more than it's helping it, and it is not increasing freedom one bit. So instead of going about this all hardcore, I just want to put that on the table that it's not changing anything except inconvenience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lee? All right, Gregory and Kelly, I don't know if you want to both come up, or? All right, good. All right.
I'm Greg Abkarian. I live at 1226 William and also 1430 Lathrop. I'm against the barriers. I've been in River Forest for almost 40-some years, actually 48 years. I remember when they closed off all the streets coming up to North Avenue, coming up to Lathrop, and they did it without putting up barriers. And it seems to have worked, though it caused a lot of traffic on Lathrop, and that is what it is. This new one, when you put up the barriers, nobody's worried about Lathrop, but that traffic went up. You can do another study, but it went up a lot more than you think. But going down William and going down Monroe, traffic went up a lot. Barely went down on Clinton and Bonnie Bray because there wasn't much for that to go down. The problem is you didn't reduce the number of cars. You're not reducing the cars. So now you're just putting them on William and you're putting them on Monroe. And Bob is a big advocate, and that lady next to him, about kid safety. You live across the street from me, Kathy, so you know that Fenwick has tons of sports. And there are kids in front of my house all day long during the school year, and I have no problem with that. They do their thing. But now you have put an unsafe amount of cars zooming down William. And I promise you, if one gets hit, I will be out there and I will tell them all the studies said don't put up the barriers. And you guys can deal with their lawyers. I'm telling you, I will be an advocate for that. Any kid, any person walking their dog to that park gets hit. I will be the biggest advocate for them. You have not mitigated the traffic. You just put it all in a different spot. Haven't reduced it anywhere, and that's the biggest problem. So I'm against these barriers because all you're doing is now making a bigger problem for other residents while you're appeasing a couple residents. And again, why would you pay for a study which I don't even know the exact amount you guys paid for it, and not listen to it. I am pretty positive all of us in here, including yourselves, aren't really, our jobs aren't putting up barriers. We don't know the mitigations of everything. That's not our jobs. We have different jobs, because if we did, I'm sure more people would be pounding with information that was probably more relevant than our eye test, right? So you should listen to the study you pay for. And in that study, it said don't put up barriers. That's the last thing to do. But that was the first thing you guys did. It was like, oh, let's just do it. We don't want to deal with anything else. I'm for making it hard for people to get through. I understand that. I'm also with Bob and his weight thing. I'm for that too. I don't want big trucks running through my city either. But you just can't throw up these barriers against the study that you paid for. And then you make it unsafe for the same kids that you're all saying we need to make it safe for kids. And you're not, because high school kids drive, right? The kids you're talking about, 3 or 4-year-olds, are usually with parents, okay? But these high school kids drive, and then they walk across the street talking on their phones. If any of you have high school kids, you know they're glued to their phone, right? They're not looking at anything else but that phone. And they're gonna walk across that street, and you have made that street, William, cars just zoom. Kathy's seen it, I've seen it. My wife has seen it. Anybody else that lives on the 1400 and 1300 block of William has. I'm just saying, but they all have seen it. You guys, they zoom down William, Bob.
Please don't. Oh, yeah, please don't. I mean,
they zoom down it, Bob. That's all. I'm just.
Just fit it.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just saying. So you put the cars going down Monroe also and William at an unsafe volume. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg. Kelly? Hi, Kelly.
So, hi, I'm Kelly Upcaring. I hope you guys use Zoom meeting audio notes to capture your meeting minutes, because they're very abbreviated from what happened at the last traffic meeting. So I just want to open with that comment to say, you guys record, you get the audio transcript, literally it'll date and timestamp everybody's comments so nothing gets mistranslated. I'm not here to be a court reporter, but your meeting minutes were lackluster from the last meeting, and there was a lot of commentary that was made that got lost, including, I wish I wrote down the gentleman's name, who lives in our community and worked for traffic and air, can't remember his exact job, but he's been doing traffic and safety his entire life. He made comments at the end that got translated to say that it was the first measure, not the last measure, because he said the last thing you ever want to do in a community is to keep the police and the emergency vehicles from being able to get to where they need in an urgent situation to get to people's homes, because in a life or death situation, seconds matter. My concern, what I raised last time, so I do data for a living. That is my job. I've been doing it for 20 years. And what I can tell you is you cannot ignore data. I'm thrilled you guys fielded a study, but it feels like no one is qualified to interpret the data that's on the staff, which is understandable, but it was unclear around how anyone came to any real conclusions around, did we solve, what questions were we looking to solve, and did we solve it? How is the data telling us whether we've solved the problem, or we've made the problem worse, or we've caused another problem unconsequentially because of it? There was a lot of discussion, and I applaud this woman who actually read the data from the study. It seemed like the traffic committee was very light and loose on details in terms of their own study. So what I would encourage you guys to do, and clearly I'm just asking that you make sure, do you know what problem you're solving? What is the data telling you? And do you really believe that you've consulted experts in this field, subject matter experts that can tell you what are the things you should and should not be doing? Because I'm telling you, the last meeting, and I was quoted correctly for this one, it was like whack-a-mole, watching it go down in terms of where we should vote, for what barriers to come up or go down. no one could really, at the end, understand what problem are we solving. We're throwing new speed bumps here, a stop sign here, maybe plastic barriers here, concrete over here. All I can say is, Kathy, this is an extremely important topic to get right. And you can't just, you've got to let data tell you the answers and subject matter experts. There was not a single person in that traffic committee that had any background or knowledge in interpreting data and or interpreting traffic field results and safety procedures. So I wish I knew that guy's name who lives in our village. Oh, thank you. I'm telling you, he was at the very end of the night, and he was the most powerful for me because he has expertise in doing these types of things. I'm not suggesting he's going to volunteer to throw his expertise in, but what I'm suggesting is that when you don't have experts and you field a study and you don't listen to the data and you don't get experts to tell you how to interpret the data, bad things happen. And Kathy, you live on William with us. I'm telling you, that traffic increase in that study that got fielded, you took a problem that really didn't exist across any of the streets. Yes, traffic is bad. I'm not disagreeing with anyone. There is traffic. You're not going to fix that. But the problem was the 2 streets you tried to fix, it didn't really come down that significant. And the other 2 streets were already worse than those 2 streets you put the barriers to move the traffic to. Now they've gotten 300% worse. And I see it and feel it ever since those barriers came up. And I worry about the safety of everyone's family, kids, residents, non-residents, whoever's trying to enjoy the city of and our great village. That's what concerns me. So my ask is read the data, get an expert. Don't take a vote until you really know what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. All right. Ron Kraus. Ron. That's all right.
My name is Ron. Sorry, can everybody hear me? I'm Ron Kraus. I live at 7301 Greenfield Street, so I'll be really brief. I'm really in support of what's going on, echoing a lot of the comments earlier about support of the traffic control measures. And I think I agree with a lot of what's going on is measured, like Gary mentioned, maybe more stop signs. I don't know if we want a wall around the village. Nobody wants that, right? But I think we do need something to control some of the flow that's going through the village, because all the comments I've heard so far, at least most of it, has been addressing the north-south flow. And that flow is going to be the same. That number, like we were talking about, let's just pick a number out of the air. 3,000 cars are going south from North Avenue to Harlem. Well, yeah, we moved them now over to William and Monroe or whatever it was. My thought was, as a simple idea, maybe we just block, and I hate to say it, but block Lemoyne and Greenfield. Then people can't get out onto Harlem, and it kind of stops the problem. I hate to be simple, but I agree just in general of just mitigating it somehow. I don't want to be extremist and put up brick walls all the way down Harlem. I know we don't all want that, but I think we have to do something because of where I live. We talked about it earlier. I live right by Fenwick, so I see the kids. And then game days when football's starting up now, Greenfield really gets to be difficult to pass through, and in effect becomes a one-way street, and people just fly down there. So again, I'm in support of whatever we can do to try to slow people down. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Ron. Okay, Colin? Wait, no worries. If you want to speak, you have to speak in the. What you get there?
What I will say is I live at 1506 Clinton, and since they have gone up, there has been a major decrease in traffic. Again, I could imagine if I lived on William, I would not be happy about that, right? Because it's just diverting where the traffic goes. But if you could do something like what you did in the west, where it's just like maybe not the barricades, but I think you just have signs, right? Where it's like no turn right, whatever it may be, no turn left, no turn right. Something to cut down on the traffic that goes through our town. But what I can say is I do have 2 little boys, and people did used to fly down Clinton, blow through stop signs, the whole 9. So that is real. I can't speak to the data because I have not reviewed it, but I know what I see now compared to what I did see, and whatever it may be, try to do something just to cut through traffic.
All right. Thank you, Colin. Karen? Karen Neal? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Neal. I'm at 1407 North Clinton. And I am against the barriers as well. I agree with the need to review the data and the statistics and the survey and all of the information that we're getting. And at the last Traffic Commission meeting, one of the commission members said that we're not going to reduce the through traffic. There's just no way to do that. It's just going to get diverted. So why are we putting up barriers when we can't reduce the through traffic? You know, that seems pretty simple to me. I mean, they are creating a false sense of safety. I'm concerned about the emergency vehicle access. As she mentioned, my husband, Tanju, is a PhD at Argonne, and he's done traffic studies in the city of Chicago, and they said that emergency vehicles are a last resort. And he's not here, so I can't speak to him to exactly what they found, but proper signage, as others have mentioned, whether it's stop signs or no entry, you know, resident access only, that kind of thing is a lot more effective, at least to start with. Somebody at the last meeting was talking about how school buses can't even get in and out on Greenfield there, and there's going to be a lot more school buses as they increase activities at Fenwick. And so, again, I'm agreeing with everybody that's against the barriers. So.
Okay, thank you. Pice, 1514 Bonnie Bray. All right, thank you.
Hi everyone, this is my name is Peter, not Pice. Let's say Chinese name, and apparently you can see a different face from here. And in fact, to be honest, I don't even know the pledge or the first thing you did in a meeting, so I'm very new here. So I'm believing in Bonnie Bray for about 2.5 years, and I'm very happy that you put on a barrier that greatly reduces the traffic coming through from north to Harlem. And I hear a lot of opinion about how they were saying that the traffic is not being reduced, but also being moved to other streets. So I hear you, but I also want you to pay attention to the numbers. You quoted about study, right? So if you think that there will be 3,000 traffic going through William, right? They cut through William and the Lancelot, and why not they do that on Bonnie Bray in the first place, right? And you said it's only 600 before that. Can you believe it? Right? So I want you to look at the study and also think about what number means. But with that, I'm not saying that we should not consider the latency on that streets. I hear you, and I want to say the solution to it is not to remove the barrier that's used to protect us, but to also find solution to also help with other people around the same areas. That's my top point. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And Jill McMahon? Jill? Okay.
All right. Jill McMahon. I am the owner of Mint Dental on at 7329 West North, which is the corner of North and Clinton. I would like to just start with, and I actually didn't read the minutes from last time to notice that there were inaccuracies in the comments, but just as a reminder that the vote that occurred last time to approve the barriers on Greenfield and Lemoyne happened before conversation and public comment. And so, and once the public comment and all the discussion came up, there were so many great points, and clearly many that were opposed to that action. So I am hopeful that you will take into consideration those negative comments that happened after, and as well as to consider removing the barriers at Clinton and Bonnie Bray. Cut through is the term that we seem to use every time when discussing what the problem is here. But I don't really believe that that is the problem. I mean, I myself cut through the village every Tuesday through Friday on my way to work, interestingly, because of the barriers, because now that's how I have to come to work. But when I cut through, I drive about 20 miles an hour. I'm stopping fully at all the stop signs, and I am hyper vigilant to any pedestrians or children playing or dogs or whatever. I would propose that if all the people cutting through were driving like me, then we wouldn't be talking about cut through. So maybe instead of blocking the people coming onto the streets, we work on trying to get people to behave traffic laws and pay attention to speed limits and stop signs and pay attention to the pedestrians that are there. I don't think that just blocking people from using streets is really the solution to the problem. It doesn't slow anybody down. It doesn't make anybody that's on the road already slow down. And the people that are just gonna cut, that don't care about traffic laws, that aren't stopping at stop signs, are also going around the barriers. So it didn't solve the problem that we were hoping to solve or that you were hoping to solve. I think that, you know, something that could actually solve the issue would potentially be to allow parking on both sides of the street between North Avenue and Lemoyne, because then the parking for businesses that are at North Avenue is actually closer to the North Avenue businesses where they are trying to go to. And when someone is turning off of North Avenue to drive through one of these streets, whether they're cutting through or they're just driving through, they're just naturally blocked from being able to just speed down when there's parking on both sides. You have to, it forces you to pay attention and slow down when you can't fit two cars going right next to each other, flying side by side, opposing, you know, coming across. So I think that that is one solution. And I don't think that, even though, like, yes, I am a business owner and these blocks have caused a problem to my business, that's not just the reason why I think that this is a problem. It's also caused safety issues for residents, for people that are coming to my business. It's much more than that, and I don't think that saying we're taking these blocks down would be a message that you care more about businesses than residents, because putting these blocks up has actually been far more detrimental to residents. That's it.
All right, thank you. Okay. I think that concludes, unless there's, oh, sorry, yep, no worries. Yep, okay, how many people want to speak? Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine, just tell me your name and your address. Oh, you don't have to tell me your address, just your name.
Oh, my name is Charles Anderson, but I will give you my address at 1402 Clinton Place,
Yes.
on the corner of Greenfield and Clinton.
Mhm.
And so, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. And, you know, I think at one point in time, the committee kind of failed the system in the neighborhood. For the past 2.5 years, discussions have been going on, and essentially it put neighbor against neighbor, which should never have been allowed to happen. And what I mean by that is, for those people on the opposing side regarding their businesses, I understand that is a direct attack on that individual's earnings to take home. Now, I'm in full favor of the blockage. However, I respect those on Bonnie Bray and Clinton and North Avenue because they have a business to hold. My only point was, if you guys would have blocked entirely both Lemoyne and Greenfield, you would have immediately eliminated the problem of cut-through. Now, we heard of a couple definitions. One person just stood up here and said cut-through doesn't exist. Well, if it didn't exist, then we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have been here for the past 2 years discussing it. That these people are business owners, and you have to consider that. My point is, it could easily have been resolved by blocking in Lemoyne and Greenfield. Then you see and measure the effect, i.e. the people who are living in Williams. They should not be suffering at all from an increased volume of traffic as a consequence of taking measures. And what are the purpose of these measures? It is for safety. I've I've seen an increase of population of young families in that northeast corner of River Forest. I see right across the street from my house as I'm just looking out my window, beautiful little children, and that's what we're talking about, the innocent. And that's the safety measures that we're talking about. This is not an existential threat to society or what we stand for in independence. Look around you. Galewood has done the same thing. Elmwood Park has done the same thing. They've done it, closed off streets, and it has been effective. There is a level of inconvenience that it creates. But my point was, when you close off Lemoyne and Greenfield, you measure the consequences of Monroe and Williams, and you treat it again. And then you systematically make those corrections, because no one should be dealing with that. And as some people living on Williams, who I respect, are saying that's an increase of safety, your ears should be popping up on this and saying it's not complete here. By closing off Bonnie Bray and Clinton Place, in my opinion, on North Avenue, didn't really address the problem. Remember, the cut-through issue we're talking twofold. We're talking speed, velocity, and tonnage, all right? Putting stop signs are only going to control speed, but you still have tonnage, all right? When people were describing the streets being parked on both sides and now it only creates a one-way street, remember, you have children, small children playing around, chasing the ball or what have you. We have as a village a responsibility to deal with the challenges that are faced in front of us, and that's what we're dealing with. For over 2 years, we have been discussing this. Now, there's always room for compromise, and no one's saying is stamping one possible solution to fix everything, and that's why you're in the positions that you are. But to deny it or react to threats and bullying is a wrong process. If you make an error, I would like to think that you make an error always to the conservative side and towards safety. No one will ever question that part. And you have, again, young children in that corner. The barriers that you currently have right now do not address the cut-through. You're allowing people on Greenfield and Lemoyne to turn southbound on Harlem. That's why people are taking the shortcut. You just systematically are just allowing people to take those turns. If you block that off, that systematically solves a problem. You don't have to threaten people's livelihood at the business on North Avenue, because they do have a right. There is a business there. That is a business district, and we have to come up with another way of allowing those people not to have their businesses affected. But again, my emphasis here to stand up and talk about the safety for the kids. Both Greenfield and Lemoyne are straight line routes to schools. People have talked about signages, which is a good point. Stop signs, fine, but remember, stop signs only require two things. There's also enforcement, and I believe our police chief said they don't have the bodies to account for that. People will be passing stop signs. And if everybody was as diligent as the other speaker talked about of driving safely and with due diligence, we wouldn't have a problem, but that's not reality what we're dealing with. We wouldn't be here for the past 2.5 years discussing the problem. So again, I'm in complete favor of the barricades, but I would argue to completely close off Lemoyne and Greenfield, which is systematically causing this whole cut-through problem. And remember, it's a two-prong effect. It's speed and tonnage we're trying to control. And everybody else around us, all the other communities, have mitigated through the same responses of closures, and they had effectiveness. And yes, you are changing behaviors. You're not changing human nature, but you are changing behaviors, and that's just the nature of the beast. We have heard arguments and bullying tactics and so forth again, and sadly, it's allowed neighbor against neighbor, and that should never have been allowed. Everybody has a right to speak, despite we may be on opposing forces, and everyone here has good intentions. So we leave it up to you to exercise leadership. Leadership is key here, folks.
Thank you.
And think about you living in a northeast corner with those new children's new families, walking around, innocent children just walking around and playing ball and so forth. Something's going to go wrong. Something deeply is going to go wrong, and we don't want to look back and say we had the chance. You know, you go to Thatcher
Charles,
Lake.
right now you're at 5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
Okay.
if you can just wrap it up. Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Of course.
Thanks. Yeah, we've got 2 other people that want to speak on this, 3 other people. Okay, if you don't mind, come forward. We'll go that way, and then Linda would stand there. Mm-hmm.
Apologies for my tardiness. I was at work as well. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to first start off.
Your name?
Is Latrina Brooks. I live at 1406 North Harlem in the townhomes. I'm here to speak for all the units at 1406. So that's unit A, B, C, D, and E, and F. All of my neighbors are against the barriers, particularly the one at, of course, Greenfield and North Avenue, in Harlem. The reason being is because originally, before the actual barriers went up, Harlem and Greenfield was a no left turn, 7 to 9, 4 to 6. That helped cut through traffic that people are complaining about. Now that the barriers have been put up, as long as people are still able to turn going westbound from Harlem on Greenfield, and you're still able to exit on Greenfield during those 7 to 9, 4 to 6 hours, that did not stop cut through traffic. Greenfield is still an exit out onto Harlem. So any individuals that are traveling down North Avenue, which seems to be the culprit of complaint, you're still having those cars cut through at the Lathrop, at the Johnny's, at the Fresh Time. They're not turning down from all those other blocks that are still open. They're just turning sooner now. So it did not stop the cut through traffic at all. I'm against all the barriers, but particularly I'm asking that at the traffic and safety meeting last month, I have to also agree that the minutes are not accurate as to what's being said in the minutes. So I definitely would implore you all to go back and listen to the actual audio recordings, as well as the traffic safety meeting. They're actually not able to actually answer any of the questions that the residents who were not privy to know the barriers were going to go up before they went up, which was half of the community, which was one of the things that was stressed, that the barriers just popped up one day without any type of notice, which the village, of course, has already owned and apologized for that. But that's just the fact that the minutes and that the things that are being said by the Traffic and Safety Committee in the meetings are not actually being recorded as accurate. I'm asking that the barriers be removed. If you all are not going to effectively move them all, I feel that it's unfair that if half or more than half of the village is against the barriers, that last meeting, the traffic safety meeting, voted for all the barriers to remain. In a democracy, you have to try to meet at least some of the people, their complaint, and try to make everyone happy. I'm all for mitigating safety as well as making sure the kids are safe, et cetera. I've lived in River Forest for 10 years. However, I think that it's unfair that we're taking a 6-hour window of people commuting and completely throwing chaos with everyone that lives in the village on how they get home for the other 18 hours of the day. At 10 o'clock at night, there is no reason why I should not be able to turn at Greenfield and Harlem. Instead, I have to turn down Division, go down William, come back around to my home at 10 o'clock, at 6 o'clock p.m., at 8 o'clock p.m., when traffic has already, from work hour, rush hour traffic died down. There is no cut-through traffic at that time. But if it's going to be addressed for cut-through traffic, you have to basically cut off the entire community from being able to get home. And I just don't feel that's fair. And it's not just an argument of convenience. If you don't have the data and the safety to support these things that we're trying to say we're eliminating, because it's not just people who are cutting through that are speeding. It is also the residents of the village who are speeding and not stopping at stop signs. So that means our children are not safe from our own neighbors as well. It's not just the cut through traffic that we're actually accusing of speeding and not stopping at stop signs. So I would just like to be put on the record on behalf of the townhomes on Harlem. Of course, everyone knows where that is, directly off of Harlem. To put the barriers up is a complete dissatisfaction to all of those residents that live there, which are over 100 units on that block of Harlem, and it makes us completely ineligible to get home the way we were normally do and have to go completely out of our way. As far as supporting the businesses, if I have to go to North Avenue, I'm choosing not to take that way, and I'm choosing to actually give my business to Bensonville, Elmhurst, and other areas. And when we say Oak Park, Elmwood Park, Gilwood Park has actually done things the same, that's not entirely true, because every day if you go down Augusta, they have not broken down and put up barriers down Augusta at at all. And everyone knows that there is nothing but cut-through traffic that goes through from Oak Park all the way down Augusta to get to Harlem. And Oak Park has not chosen to put up blockages at Augusta to get in and out of those blocks. It's unfair to the people who live in the community. So I feel that we just need to try to find a balance, and that is to not block off the entire northeast corner.
Okay, thank you. Did you want, yeah, go ahead. Politis.
Good evening, I'm Marika Panchin. I echoed every single thing that Latrina said today. Get rid of all the barriers, the barricades. You're affecting the businesses.
Huh?
1137 Park Avenue.
We really don't need it, but.
And I do see quite a bit of cars going down Division, and it's not a good thing. Can I segue to Lake and Lathrop?
No, I'd like you can absolutely do it, but let us get through this, if you don't mind.
Well, that's.
Because we were trying to get through these.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Lake and Lathrop
Yeah, you're more
today.
than welcome to come back, if you don't mind.
Come back tonight?
No, we're here, we're gonna stay here, but come back to when we get to that issue.
Oh.
Yeah. So give us a couple minutes to get through this, and then we're gonna talk about Lake and Lathrop.
You still want me to talk about the traffic safety?
Yeah, if you're,
I
just
mean,
finish your comments on
I'm
that.
echoing, I'm against the barricades,
Okay.
everything. You're
Okay.
affecting the businesses. They pay a lot of taxes, revenue is affected. A lot of children, emergency vehicles will never get anywhere on time. If there was an emergency, someone had a cardiac arrest, and there's a lot of children, and there's about 7, 8 schools all along that part of River Forest. So and then again, with the high school, Fenwick, there's a lot of sports going on, and it's just hard to maneuver when you keep closing up streets.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
Very good, thank you. Okay, thanks, and then just hold tight, we're gonna get through there's other speakers on this, and so I'd like to take as many. No, okay, yeah, please come up. No, you gotta be up to we already heard, yeah, gotta get up to the microphone, please. Thank you, Stephanie.
Stephanie Petersmark. I live at Clinton and Greenfield, facing Greenfield. Number one, I'm here to request that the board not approve the package that was put forth by the Traffic and Safety Committee, in addition to the reasons mentioned here already tonight, including that they refused, despite our many requests and objections, to listen to our comments before they voted. They then voted in a way that if you actually go back and listen to what happened as opposed to what the Traffic and Safety Committee's people decided to put down in the minutes, which for at least the second time have been inaccurate, not reflecting what was done, as well as omitting a bunch that was said and done. The package is completely arbitrary. Concrete to be installed on Greenfield. Maybe we leave the one on Lemoyne. We'll leave the one on Bonnie, or maybe we won't. We'll take out the one on Clinton. Why? No explanation given. Makes no sense. None of it makes sense. We still don't have a problem we're trying to solve, okay? So I request that you please not vote on that package. If you go back and listen to what was actually said at the meeting, the committee started talking about some toolkit they're anticipating, a traffic and safety toolkit. They decided to not listen or bring that up when they decided to put in the package that Greenfield should have a concrete barrier. So what I'm saying is, it makes no sense to approve that package. Wait, as they said repeatedly during their own meeting, until they see this toolkit that will allow them to actually analyze what is available and hopefully actually identify a problem before they start blocking us into our communities. The barriers are a solution to nothing. They have created safety problems. There have been accidents where there were none before. People continue to cut through in speed. This morning, as I was driving some of my children and my wife was walking my other child, we're stopped. I'm on Greenfield. We're at Jackson. A car had to have been going 70 miles an hour. It almost tipped over. Didn't pause. Almost hit my kid and my wife, and then almost hit me in the car. Okay, nothing has been done to make you safer. Don't listen to the people who are telling you otherwise. You have seen no actual evidence because there is none. The barriers, the blockades, the gates, whatever this business is supposed to be, you're not safer. Please understand that. Everyone here wants to be safer. I haven't heard a single person stand up and say, less safe for me. I vote less safe, okay? But what we are right now is less safe from ourselves and from the people driving around the barriers. People continue to speed, if not more aggressively on Greenfield than they ever did before. I absolutely do not want Lemoyne and Greenfield. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Send it back, get your toolkit, don't vote. It's extremely premature, and as Mr. Lee pointed out earlier, you don't have the authority to do what you did. You didn't follow your own policies and procedures, and you don't have jurisdiction over that. And when we ask you questions like what is your authority and what are the problems you're trying to solve, I don't understand why you and the traffic committee simply refuse to explain that to the residents. It's just, it blows my mind. So again, please do not approve that package today. Send it back, talk to experts, listen to the data. You don't have to listen to anybody else's anecdote. Look at the data. Kathy, I'm sorry this isn't interesting enough for you,
No,
but
it's
for
very
me this
interesting.
is
I just
super
wanted
important.
we answer your
okay?
question.
So please, don't approve that package tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I was just trying to see if we can answer your questions. Yowzer. Okay, anybody else for the barriers northeast corner? Okay, I think that concludes the public comments on this issue, and I really appreciate everybody's time and effort and passion around this issue. Now is the time for us to talk about it, and in order for us to do it, we need a motion and a second, and then we'll discuss it, and if we need to change it, we will.
So we're going to do it one at a time?
I think we want to do it one at a time, right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that'd be my recommendation because
All right.
they're separate issues.
Okay, so I'll need a motion on the first one, a second, and then we can, I guess, discuss it. You don't want to think we
Okay,
can
I'll
discuss
make
it?
a-
I mean, we
I'll make a
can discuss in total before as staff can present if you'd prefer before discussing in total. These were the questions that the village board directed the Traffic and Safety Commission to take on back in April. So the Traffic and Safety Commission took on separate issues, the stop signs and other issues that have come up from public comment, in addition to whether to keep the barriers in their current state or remove them or install.
All right, so let's take them individually. We'll ask Jeff then to come and talk about them individually, and then we'll try to make some sense out of this.
So are we making the motion and
Yeah,
then letting
please.
Jeff go? Okay, motion,
In one motion, and then Jeff will speak.
motion to install signs in the eastbound and westbound directions at the intersection of Clinton Place and Lemoyne Street.
Second.
Okay. So Jeff, if you can give us,
Sure,
Your
and in the interest of
professional
time, I'll try
opinion.
to be brief, but obviously if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my abilities. This intersection, Clinton and Lemoyne, this used to be a four-way stop. As part of the initial installation, this was changed to a two-way stop. So really, this motion is just kind of putting back what used to be there. The concern was that, you know, some of the shifted traffic was now just kind of blowing through this intersection in an unsafe manner. So the idea was a four-way stop would make it a safer intersection.
okay. All right. Any questions for Jeff on this particular issue in terms of the stop sign? Right.
Can I ask you, Jeff, could you explain the toolkit comment? It's
Certainly.
just kind of an overarching statement, please.
So while these discussions have been going on at the Traffic and Safety Commission level, as well as at the board level for the last at least several months, kind of in earnest, there is an ongoing village-wide traffic study also going on. As part of that village-wide traffic study, the consultant is putting together what we're referring to as a traffic calming toolbox. This was part of the RFP that was issued. That was one of the things that the commission has been asking for over the past several years. You know, we don't know what tools we have to implement, right? And we want to be consistent in how we implement them. So let's kind of put a menu together, if you will, of what we have at our disposal every time something comes in. So that toolbox is part of the coming village-wide traffic study, which should be ready for the September meeting discussion at Traffic and Safety.
And just to follow up on that, by toolbox, do you mean things like stop signs, flashing stop signs, speed bumps?
It's pages long, speed tables, curb movements, bump outs, yes.
All the stuff you can use to calm traffic.
Exactly, and it's
Thanks.
kind of stratified, so you've got these really light things, there's measuring criteria, so depending on how severe the issue is, we can start small and ramp our way up, but it's context for them to use on a consistent basis moving forward.
Is this stop sign in any way opposing what this is being recommended? In other words, is there something in that toolkit that could be a better solution, in your professional opinion?
I don't know. I'm not a transportation engineer, so I can't really answer that question. This was a four-way stop before. I don't have the expertise to say we shouldn't do this or we absolutely should do this.
No, I'm not asking that question, Jeff. I was asking, in your professional opinion, is there something in that toolkit that could potentially, be a better solution than the stop sign?
It potentially could be. There could be, speed bumps or bump outs at that intersection that might solve the issue as well. There might be multiple things that would solve the issue instead of a stop sign or in addition to a stop sign too.
Right.
I think there are probably multiple ways to attack a lot of these issues, but until that discussion happens at the commissioner or the board level, I think any one of those might work.
But taking cost into consideration, this would not have dramatically affected either way. If you had a toolbox that said specifically we had to get rid of that stop sign, that's a low-cost thing to do, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And Jeff, I have a question. In the past, we talked about a village-wide traffic study. Where are we on that, and will that impact what we're doing today, and if so, how?
The village-wide traffic study is currently underway. It's kind of in draft form, but it's nearing its end. It's teed up for the September Traffic and Safety Commission meeting, the third Wednesday in September. So that's kind of ready for discussion. This corner of town, because this study, when the board approved this study, we kind of carved out this corner of town in the village-wide study. Because we were talking about that at the same time, we said, well, let's get this one going so we can get movement on this, but then we'll do the village-wide study, and then as we went through the RFP process, that just took some time. So the village-wide study is not looking at this corner of town because this study was ongoing at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. Yes, we carved it out, but will there be any attempt to marry both of them to create some sort of cohesive plan?
I don't think there's anything. I mean, Greenfield and Lathrop are busy enough streets where, and frankly, half of Greenfield is kind of blocked off from, William over or Monroe over. So I don't think there are a lot of concerns. Certainly something I can bring up to the consultant, but that's not something that's raised any red flags to this point.
In addition to that, the board provided direction that a few of the traffic counts from the village-wide traffic study, the northeast neighborhood wasn't as part of that scope, but we took 3 traffic counts from the village-wide pool and applied them to Division, Monroe, and William to monitor the impact or to collect information on the impacts of the plastic barriers.
Okay. Any further questions for Jeff regarding this issue?
Well, I just have one question. I mean, is there any?
This is your second question.
That's okay. I might have a third one.
Okay.
Is there any desire from any of the board members to kick this down the road again, or do we want to take action on these tonight?
Well, you just moved it and seconded it.
I understand
so,
that, but
yeah.
I'm just saying, as we go forward.
Well, I think
on
we'll
this-
take a vote, and that vote will either
okay.
go up or down.
Well, I'll just say generally, and it somewhat answers the question you just asked, Bob. I don't think I heard any of the residents who had one opinion or the other about the barricades have a problem with the stop sign at this intersection.
Right.
I heard in general people want to calm traffic for whatever the cause of that traffic is. And putting a stop sign is inexpensive and it gives us more information. So I'm in favor of this.
Makes sense. Okay. Any further questions for Jeff. Okay, hearing no further questions, I ask John to please take a vote on this motion.
Question over to your left.
No. This is just for our,
Just a question from the board.
this is just our,
Yeah.
just for, although you are kind of welcome to, kind of close.
You almost snuck it in there.
You almost,
Yeah.
I'm thinking Lance, go ahead. Yeah, thank you, but only the trustees. All right, so no further questions by the trustees. I'd ask John, please take the vote. Yeah.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Bredden.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Gillis.
Wait. Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
No worries, it's all good. All right, let's move on to the next motion, which is to install
Okay.
stop signs. So I'd ask a motion in a second.
I move to install stop signs in the eastbound and westbound directions of the intersection of Greenfield Street and Bonnie Bray.
Second.
Yeah, so it seems similar. Any questions for Jeff regarding this particular intersection?
The only difference I would point out is that Greenfield was, this was not a three-way stop before,
Right.
unlike Clinton and Lemoyne. So this Greenfield has always been allowed to travel east-west unimpeded.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, just for clarification, when we say it's a three-way stop, can you explain?
The Fenwick lot does have a stop sign at it. It's just not one of our public rights-of-way. So it is kind of effectively a four-way stop. There would be stops at all legs of that intersection. That fourth is just not.
Coming out of the parking lot.
Right.
Please.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I just wanted to.
Yep,
you know,
sure. Yep.
In the
makes sense.
spirit of over-communication.
Understood. All right, any further questions by the trustees? Hearing none, I will ask the clerk to please take the vote.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Gillis.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Okay, then we're moving on to the third motion. I'd ask the trustee to move and second the third motion for discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to remove the plastic barricades at Lemoyne Street and Harlem Avenue and replace them with a permanent installation allowing only southbound to westbound and eastbound to southbound turning movements.
Second.
Okay, so Jeff, maybe you can give us some.
Point of order, if I may. Was in the packet Friday afternoon, the ordinance, and what is being read differs from this. This is more vague, and it says that that Title IX, entitled traffic regulations, et cetera, will be amended by the following. So the first two were Lemoyne Street directional, it doesn't say stop signs, and now it doesn't say whatever you all just said with the traffic barrier.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the packet, is this different than what the board has?
It should be no different, and I'll certainly double-check that, but the ordinance. Understood. The ordinances are just the codification of what we're discussing here this evening. So it
Well, yeah, please, I asked for, I mean, we're a small community. I mean, we heard a lot of your comments, and that's what I was trying to do, Stephanie. I was just trying to get some clarification on a few things that were discussed so we can talk about them. But go ahead, Jeff, let's stay focused on this.
Sure. So Lemoyne at Harlem, initially this was installed as a kind of right out only. So only eastbound to southbound traffic movement was allowed. As part of a compromise, the commission voted to change that to kind of a right in, right out. So southbound Harlem could still turn westbound into River Forest at Lemoyne, and eastbound traffic could still, that was never changed. The eastbound traffic could still turn southbound onto Harlem. So that is what's currently present as of right now via the plastic barricades, and the commission voted to basically replace those with a permanent curbed installation.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff on this?
So I would say employing this would be a costly manner when taking into account the toolkit. Is that correct?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, any kind of curbed installation like this would involve, cutting open the roadway, installing curb. Obviously, I don't know what we would put inside the triangle, if you will. Is that paved? Is that green space? We've got some sidewalk to put in at that point. So, yeah, certainly more expensive than the stop signs. potentially cheaper options, potentially more expensive options. This is what the commission was discussing at their meeting, however.
Jeff, do you have any input about emergency vehicles being able to make their way through this intersection if we make this permanent?
No, I mean, one of the tools that would be used during design, not that we have it in-house, but any kind of design would involve auto turn, which is you can kind of plug in emergency vehicle dimensions and route them through to make sure that things are traversable. I would certainly defer to fire department and PD on whether or not they have any concerns. I don't know, I can't speak to it. We've discussed it conceptually. It doesn't sound like there have been any major concerns, but again, I would defer to emergency services for that.
So you'd incorporate their input?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Any issues from the public safety group, maybe to further answer Trustee Brennan's question? Any from fire? No issues? Okay. All right. Any further questions by the trustees to Jeff on this motion? Okay. Yep.
Oh,
Go
I just
ahead,
have a
Erica.
quick question
Yes,
about this. So I remember during one of our conversations, there was something about if we put something permanent here, one of the concerns was snow during the winter seasons and then people not being able to see it. Can you just remind us what you would do to make sure that something like that doesn't happen?
I mean, that's something that we would, I imagine, discuss at the board level, because anything we would design would have to come back to the board for approval of a construction award, construction contract award. That design would be kind of brought before you, and we could discuss that as a group. Anything from, the bollards, I know those aren't everyone's favorite, but similar to what we have at Chicago, at the rain gardens along Chicago, Forest, Keystone, Bonnie, and Jackson. Something sticking up that's reflective so that everybody could see. Plantings, there's any number of ways to make things more visible there as opposed to just a 6-inch curb. We also have some of this in place already up at Forest and North Avenue, Quick and Harlem, coming out of the Walgreens parking lot onto Lake Street. So this wouldn't be the first and only version of this in town, but certainly something we could take into consideration and discuss during the design portion.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
And I just had one other thought. This is an intersection where there's going to be buses which come out of Fenwick and then go right on Harlem there?
That would be Greenfield. Right now, I kind of took them in reverse order. So this is Lemoyne on the table right now.
Okay, I'll hold that.
But yes.
Okay. Any further questions for Jeff? Okay, hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to please take this vote.
Trustee Johnson.
No.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Gillis.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the motion passes. So if we can move on to the fourth motion, if I can get a motion and a second, please.
Motion
Okay.
to,
Go ahead,
No,
Erica.
go ahead.
motion to remove the plastic barricades at Greenfield Street and Harlem Avenue and replace them with a permanent installation, allowing only southbound to westbound and eastbound to southbound turning movements, with a design that specifically allows for bus traffic to easily traverse the intersection.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I guess the way the motion's written, it addresses my issue.
Try to take care of it, yes. This was just to throw it out there. I mean, this was basically ran the same route as Lemoyne and Harlem, changed at the same point in time and originally installed at the same point in time and currently exists similar to Lemoyne and Harlem. So very similar setup. Obviously, the concern being some of the bus traffic coming out of Fenwick and making sure we take that into account.
In your background, taking in consideration bus traffic and also making it easier for people to try to turn left or try to go straight, do you think those things conflict with each other?
Yes, because anything we would do to make it easier for bus traffic would obviously make it easier for regular vehicle traffic to potentially go the way that's unintended. It would still be, by ordinance, would still be illegal and would be subject to citation. But yes, any accommodation we made to bus traffic would kind of enable vehicle traffic to travel unintended directions.
I'll just ask my question again. Having the knowledge that more information is still coming in, would it be more costly to remove these barriers if, in fact, the toolkit or other data that came in requested that we remove it?
Repeat that question.
Would it be more costly to remove that barricade?
Once it's permanently installed?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
If I can make a point about the traffic toolbox, that's to be applied to any scenario where there's a request to explore a problem. When we get a request or a petition or someone comes to a meeting, this traffic toolbox will be used to address those specific items. In this case, so that will be for anything moving forward. In this case, since it's an existing condition, the idea being that there won't be additional information as part of the village-wide traffic study for this.
There will be no more information?
Item. No, because it was outside of the scope of the village-wide traffic study because we had taken this piece out. So I don't want to. I want to manage expectations for additional information coming forward for that. If the village board wants to revisit that and we take additional traffic counts at Greenfield or Lemoyne or any of these, we certainly can. But part of the reason for bringing these points forward so that we can address the current condition and that way the Traffic and Safety Commission and the village board can take a broader look at the other issues that may be out there as part of the village-wide traffic study. So that's the reason this is forward. I know the traffic toolbox may be helpful moving forward, but I would just ask the board consider not relying on that traffic toolbox for a decision on some of these items, especially when we're not collecting additional data about the Greenfield and Harlem, at least in the near future.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Jeff on this, this motion? Hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to please take the vote.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Gillis.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
No.
Okay. All righty, moving on to the fifth, I'm sorry, motion, and this is the stop signs. So I'll ask a trustee to, these at the alleys.
Motion to install,
Go ahead,
motion
Lisa.
to install stop signs at all exit points and alleys bound by Harlem Avenue, Greenfield Street, William Street, and North Avenue, in addition to all three legs of the T alley intersection just west of Harlem Avenue and south of North Avenue, and to install seasonal speed bumps within the same alleys at locations to be determined by staff, to be removed during winter months for the purposes of snow removal operations.
Second.
Okay, any questions for Jeff regarding this, the bump, speed bumps and signs?
So my only question on this one is, this seems to be, and I don't know if did you guys talk about tables in the alleys? Or was it, the speed tables?
As opposed to speed bumps?
Yeah.
No.
Is 6 and 1/2 dozen the other? Does it make it easier for Public Works to operate there in the winter with speed humps as opposed to bumps?
I don't know that the commission was drawing a difference, to be honest with you. I think the idea was that there was an acknowledgement that alley traffic had increased since the barriers went in. So in an effort to stem that, it was, let's put stop signs and speed bumps of some kind in there at locations to be determined by staff. So I don't think there wasn't a ton of discussion on the specific type of bump, hump, table, so on and so forth.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Jeff, did you indicate earlier that those would be removed during the winter months?
That was something the commission had recommended, was to ease snow removal operations during the winter months, that they would be, the speed bumps, not the stop signs, but the speed bumps would be seasonal and removed during snowy weather.
Because of the plowing, correct?
Correct.
I've got a question about the stop signs. When, I would say probably maybe about like 10 years ago or so, there were stop signs at some of the alleys. And I feel like it caused a false sense of security because it was back behind the street and there would be items blocking each side. So you still weren't sure whether people or pedestrians were coming through. And because you stepped at that stop sign, you might just want to go, right, causing a dangerous situation. And if this is approved, I'd like for there to be consideration of like, do you pull the stop sign further based on what is there? Or
Yeah, fair concern. I would offer the kind of flip side of that is if it does get pushed back so that vehicles can travel through and see more of those, then you're crossing that sidewalk. So typically, not like any other intersection, that stop sign is kind of in front of the crosswalk. So it would be similar to that. Any line of sight issues would have to be managed some other way. We're obligated to stop that in front of the crosswalk.
is there anything else that you can do potentially for places where that might be an issue to like have some?
Some folks have put up mirrors so that as you approach a location like that, you're able to kind of see out in front of you and to the side a little bit better around obstructions. That would be something, and I think there's some language in the ordinance that might require encroachment agreements if private property owners wanted to install those, but that's something potentially that the board could take a look at, or somehow, putting an ordinance in place to mitigate sightline obstructions at stop intersections, to require removal of bushes or any kind of obstruction like that. But these stop signs would be installed similar and in a consistent fashion to stop signs at all the other intersections.
Gotcha. As you're looking to do this, if this gets approved, is that something that you could look at, like where those might be?
Certainly.
Just, I guess, to build on Bob's question, I mean, we can start that these are temporary speed bumps, so if in the future we decided we want to move to tables, that's something we can certainly do, correct? Since
Absolutely. Or
temporary.
require a permanent installation at some point, yes.
Yeah, and we would go with tabletops over speed bumps because it's easier for the plows?
No.
If you're talking permanently, potentially, but right
Yes.
now we're just talking about temporary, so it kind of doesn't matter because plows won't be an issue. But absolutely, if this ever got changed, I imagine it would come back to the board for discussion anyway, so that would be something we could discuss at that time.
Okay, any further questions for Jeff? Okay. Sounds like school's out. All right, so let's go ahead and take the vote then, please.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Gillis.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, okay, the last motion, if I can get a motion in a second.
A motion to remove plastic barriers at North Avenue and Clinton Place.
Second.
Go. Skip over the Bonnie one. Did you do number 6? Sorry.
That one's last.
No, yeah, that one's last, and there's no
Oh,
motion.
sorry,
This
I
is
apologize. I
regarding
switched
the
Correct.
barricade at Clinton. I mean, it's been there, so we know what it is.
Yeah.
Any questions for Jeff on removing this barrier at Clinton?
So this one, I sort of go back to the question that Bob had earlier about, is there some value in not voting on this until traffic and safety has the benefit of some more information from the toolbox? Or did you just say they can't use the toolbox?
Well, it could certainly be part of the conversation. The Traffic and Safety Commission is planning to discuss the Bonnie Bray and North Avenue barrier as well. I think they just did not have the time to address that item at the last meeting. So it's certainly up to the board if it wanted to refer it back to the Traffic and Safety Commission. The the goal was to try and bring everything back to the village board so that the Traffic and Safety Commission could address the village-wide traffic study and other issues that might be associated. But obviously, this is a tough decision for the village board, so I certainly would understand if the direction was to defer it back to the commission. They meet next month.
Thanks. So I listened to almost all of the 3 hours of the last Traffic and Safety Commission meeting, and it was a tough meeting, as many of you know. And I heard a lot of good input from residents after the commission had already discussed and voted. And I heard at least one, what I thought was one good suggestion that I don't remember being discussed at that commission in July, but I heard a comment tonight about having parking on both sides of Clinton, which would be traffic calming. Okay, I'm seeing. Well, I'm not sure that everything that the residents suggested was discussed by the commission at its last meeting. And I'm not sure that everything that the residents suggested tonight here has been contemplated by the Traffic and Safety Commission as well. So I would be in favor of taking, and I'll add one more thing. I heard several times in that Traffic and Safety meeting, the commission meeting, that there was a direction from the village board that they wanted a recommendation, the village board, we wanted a recommendation from Traffic and Safety to come to us at this meeting tonight. And I certainly don't remember feeling the sense of urgency that seemed to be imparted on that commission in their July meeting. So I personally am fine taking a step back, giving a little bit more time to these two issues, the barriers at North Avenue and Clinton and North Avenue, and, well, the only motion that's on the table right now is Clinton, but Bonnie Bray as well. I'd be willing to send these back to the Traffic and Safety Commission.
Well, if I recall, I think you can correct me, but I think that we had a lengthy discussion around having traffic come back to us on a recommendation.
Yeah, I'd have to check the exact language, but there was a policy statement, we called it, that directed the certain questions to the Traffic and Safety Commission. There was a reference to directing discussion at their May and July meetings. I don't know if it had specifics about a recommendation coming forward, but that was the goal of the May meeting. There was no votes. It was extensive public comment, and there was the Traffic and Safety Commission wanted to come back in July to discuss those items, which is why the discussion was before the public comment on the agenda, to allow the Traffic and Safety Commission to deliberate so that we could find a solution. Certainly the village board can defer back to that, but that was the intent, was to try and get a new recommendation or confirmed recommendation at those two meetings. But obviously, it's not a binding direction.
But going back to earlier, there's a motion on the table, so.
Well, I mean, unless we, vote it down, and we could rechange it. So, I mean, if you want to, remand it back to the
Yeah, well, if we.
committee, we could do that. But if that's the majority, if that's what you guys want to agree as a
If there's a
majority.
procedural preference to table, that would take precedence over a substantive vote. So you wouldn't have to vote it down.
Right.
A motion to table would would be taken first, if you want that, if there's a desire for that.
Or the alternative, you withdraw the motion since you made the motion.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that was.
So, right, I mean, we're not going to,
Right.
We don't need to get caught
If
up in
you're
Robert's
inclined.
rules here, but.
So, I mean, we got to talk about it. So what is the board interested in doing? Is it interested in tabling it or discussing it further and voting on it? I mean, need some direction? So you're, well, I'm hearing no feedback, so what I'm hearing is, let's vote on it. If I,
Actually, I would table.
okay, huh?
I would table.
You'll table it. And bring it back for more discussion.
Yes, but I think we also have to basically talk about the realities of the commission, in that we really do applaud a lot of the public comment, but the public comment is turning out to be repetitive and a detriment to actually the commission being able to do what they have to do in the timeline they have. And I think that's part of the realities here. So.
Well, no, I understand. It's very frustrating, so I apologize. But what we need to do is get through this. Otherwise, we're not going to get through it. So give me some time just to work with the board. And so the motion right now, very good, thank you. And I will give you a clarification. The motion is to remove the barricade at North Avenue and Clinton Place.
Okay.
And now we're discussing it, and Trustee Brennan asked a good question about, well, if we have to do Bonnie Brae, why don't we just do them all together to see what the discussions might be at the traffic and safety? And we were just discussing that was what was remanded back was to discuss these two, and they didn't discuss the last one because they ran out of time, which is the Bonnie Brae one. So,
So if we were to.
that was at traffic and safety. That was at well.
It was discussed.
But-
It was discussed.
But I'm saying that's what it said right here.
It was
But there was
discussed.
no recommendation.
There was no
I'll
No, Greg, I was
explain
just saying there was no recommendation.
There was a because they voted to leave the temporary barricades in
So
place.
why
so
is-
that is the recommendation,
action-
but
no
there's no
action necessary.
motion that the board is required to make on that because the temporary
So
barricades.
that was to
The
stay
recommendation
the
was to
recommendation.
keep
So
it
my
in its
apologies.
current form,
So right now, there's no motion on the table to stay the barricades.
Correct, because there's no motion required.
Fair
for
enough,
that.
fair enough. Okay, well, that was discussed, that was what was agreed to, and it was agreed to take down the barriers at Clinton. Now you're saying, let's give traffic and safety more time? I'm trying to get to some idea to discuss this further?
I would request that we table that motion and ask traffic and safety to take another look at that one.
And not the Bonnie Brae, and
Well, there's no motion,
no,
there's no
because
motion
they
necessary
they
for Bonnie
made that.
Brae.
So
They're
you're just
already planning to
they're
look
already
at that
planning
again.
to keep that permanent.
No.
I mean, to
they're-
talk
they're
about
planning
it.
to
I'm sorry,
revisit- yeah.
talk about it.
Talk about it to
And,
decide.
okay, I mean, we could table it, we can give it back to the commission, which I think they've talked about it, and they gave us a recommendation, so.
Yeah, having listened to that meeting, I think that, if I'm recalling correctly, there were two very close votes on it.
I can clarify some of that if you'd like. So the first vote that they took was similar to the Clinton vote, or excuse me, to the Bonnie Brae vote, where the motion on the table was to leave it in its current form, and that was voted down. So they next made a motion to remove it altogether in its current form, and that was voted favorably. So the vote that went through, their recommendation was to remove the temporary barricades.
And it was a 3-2 vote.
Correct.
May I ask what the other votes were for the previous ones? I thought they also merit further discussion, but apparently
Yeah,
that's
I
not the
think
case.
They're all in the memos at the bottom of each recommendation. So the stop sign was, the two stop signs were 5-0 in favor of installing the stop signs.
Yeah.
Lemoyne and Harlem was voted 4-1 in favor of making it permanent, as was Greenfield and Harlem. The speed bumps and stop signs in the alleys were voted 5-0 in favor. The Bonnie Brae and North Avenue, leaving it in its current form, was voted 5-0 in favor of leaving it in its current form. And as Village Administrator Walsh pointed out, Clinton and North Avenue was originally 3-2 against leaving it in its current form, but then 3-2 in favor of removing it.
So, right. Well, I just need some further clarification, Jeff, so I understand. The Bonnie Brae one, it says discussion can take place in September. What are they discussing in September, the Traffic and Safety Commission?
The commission was planning to, the idea was that the village-wide study would be up for discussion in September along with the traffic calming toolbox. So they believe that they would have that at their disposal as a context to further review Bonnie and North Avenue.
Okay, and so, I guess, then similarly, if they remove the barricades, they don't need the toolkit, apparently.
Correct.
And I'm just going to ask the question again. So the motion to remove the plastic barricades at North Avenue and Clinton Place is because they made a decision to not look at that further? Or they going to continue to look at that.
Correct. And that's why I was confused earlier about the order we were taking this, because Bonnie was up for a vote first. They voted to leave it in its current form. Then when it got to Clinton, they originally voted to leave it in its place. They said no. And then the vote was to completely remove it. So that was the last discussion, Clinton and North Avenue, that took place.
That's what confused us.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
We probably should have had that as a motion, just out of formality.
Either that or, based on what I'm hearing now, I'm inclined to withdraw my second on this motion, because I'm concerned that if the commission comes back with a different decision than what we moved on the plastic barricades in North Avenue and Clinton, I'm probably going to vote against it. If they're North Avenue, we're talking about barricades on 2 streets on that section. I'm going to be hard pressed if they agree to remove it on North Avenue and Clinton, and then they decide they're not going to remove it on Bonnie Bray, then I'm going to have some issues with it because it seems inconsistent. So that's why I'm inclined to withdraw my motion, because it sounds like they haven't decided what they're really going to do with those 2 exits. Well,
They voted on something, and
Yes.
made a recommendation to us, so I assume they gave that some thought as to the ramifications of leaving one versus the other, so I guess I will disagree with you on that.
okay, Bob, I'm only coming back saying that if I'm going to vote on the removing the North Avenue and Clinton Place, I better see a similar motion on Bonnie Bray.
Well,
They
that-
can
I agree
discuss it as all they want.
I agree with that.
But it's inconsistent, Bob, if they come back with a different decision on that. So it doesn't make sense to me that they're agreeing to remove those plastic barricades on North Avenue and Clinton, and then they can just talk more. And my fear is they talk more about Bonnie Bray and say, you know what, as we talk about it further, we are going to leave those barricades there, and maybe we should have gone back and leave the barricades on North Avenue and Clinton. That's my only concern. So I just want them to be consistent, whatever they're deciding to do on those 2 streets.
Well, they can be consistent
Yeah.
by vote versus tabling. I mean, tabling would be an option to go have further
Right.
discussion to make it clear. I'm not going to disagree, but
Right.
you can make it consistent.
Okay.
I mean, just for
No,
clarification.
I see.
So are what's on the board? What
so
are we
right
voting on here?
now-
We have a
The
motion?
tabling?
Yeah, so right now, because Trustee Vasquez withdrew his second, we're sort of hanging here. So given the discussion, it sounds like there may be a majority that would like these 2 final issues to be considered and presented together to the board by the commission. That may be the case, and the way to test that would be a motion to table this barrier at North Avenue and Clinton and refer it to the Traffic and Safety Commission for further consideration, consistent with their additional discussion of the Bonnie Bray one.
I'm tempted to just say I so move.
And that's okay.
Okay, so move.
I do have a question.
Okay, yeah.
that I
Well, I want to get the process here.
So
because
is there a second, I
Is there a
guess, right?
second to her table? We hear none.
Oh, I was going to second it.
Oh,
I
okay, go
thought-
ahead, second it.
I thought, Ken, you were going to
I'm not
second it. Okay.
No.
So I'll second it. And we can take a vote.
Well,
Or after discussion.
yeah.
Yeah, so I am curious, Jeff, the decision between plastic barricades and something like at Lemoyne and Greenfield that would be more permanent. What was the decision-making process there?
In terms of what the replacement would be?
Because why wouldn't they go permanent? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't follow the question.
So, what you're saying is why wouldn't they propose a write-in, write-out on Clinton?
No, what I'm saying is on Clinton, they're saying, that currently we have plastic barricades there. Why didn't they, like Lemoyne and Greenfield, say, we're going to remove the barricades and put something concrete?
Are you talking about Clinton and North?
Yes.
Because they
Oh,
voted to
Bonnie-
remove it altogether.
No, Bonnie Bray.
Bonnie
Bonnie Bray,
Bonnie Bray.
They made it
They just-
permanent.
Bonnie Bray.
they didn't make Bonnie Bray permanent. They wanted to review Bonnie Bray and North Avenue within the context of the traffic calming toolbox in September.
Okay,
So they didn't want to vote for any sort of permanent installation until they had more time.
got it.
really
Thank you very
Right.
much. Yeah.
It's just kind of confusing. I'm
Yeah.
not going to disagree.
Right.
So, all right, so we've got a motion to table, a second to table. Let's vote on whether we should table
Table.
this and bring it back to the commission. And if this, just so you know, whoa,
Ooh,
if this fails, then we will have another motion, hopefully a second, to either approve or reject the motion.
Right.
So, thank you for dimming it, it's kind of nice. All right, so let's take the vote, and this is to
Okay,
table
table it.
and bring it back to the commission.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
No.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Gillis.
Yes.
3-3, right?
No?
No, what did you said yes or no?
I said yes. He said no.
Yes.
All right. Okay, it's 4, very good. Okay,
5.
5-1.
Yeah. Bob was the only no,
oh,
not the table.
sorry, I miscounted. Okay,
No.
yes, so it's going back to the commission. Okay. Okay, so it stays in place. All right, so I think that finishes up this motion. I want to get.
Can we take
we're-
a 2-minute
Yeah,
break
so we can
or
just,
3?
can we pause here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll pause for
Recess.
5 minutes
Okay.
and regroup.
I don't understand.
So, here, I'm going to try to start our meeting. Can I get some, thanks, guys. All right, we're going to resume this, our meeting. But before we do, I did want to have our village attorney and our village administrator to discuss 2 things that came up during the traffic barriers, and that was the jurisdiction over our streets and audio. And again, you know, our team and staff try to do their very best on capturing the minutes. They're not perfect, but there is audio, always audio, and that's why we ask people to speak into the microphone and speak slowly, because that's a good way to really learn what happens at meetings, is to listen to the audio, just not read the minutes. So, but I do want Lance, our village attorney, to talk about jurisdiction. That kind of came up twice, and I want to get clarification on that. So that's what I was trying to get when Stephanie was speaking. I didn't mean to be rude. I just wanted to make sure we addressed it.
Okay, so very generally, the authority of a municipality over its streets is pretty complete. These are village streets, they're not township, they're not county. Harlem Avenue is a state road, but IDOT would never have any problem with us completely closing off any of the roads that adjoin Harlem Avenue. The hard thing to do is to get an opening on Harlem Avenue where there wasn't one before. They would love it if they were all closed off.
Right.
And so that's really not the issue, but the village has authority over its streets. It can't landlock a property, you have property rights, but what we're talking about here is convenience and inconvenience and maneuvering around the village, and that's a political issue, not a jurisdictional issue. So it's my opinion that the village board has the authority to make these modifications the same as the lesser intrusive ones like installing stop signs and speed bumps, traffic calming devices on its own roads. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. Thank you. I just didn't, that was on my to list to make sure we got clarification. So, all right, so we're going to move on to our new business, which is 9A. We'll go ahead and take public comment now, and I'll try to do my very best to get through this list. The first one we have is Louise.
I'm Louise. Excuse me. I'm Louise Mezzatesta. I live at Centennial House, which is at 7575 Lake Street. So I am virtually next door to the new development, except for the little shops that are on the very corner. I'm a fairly new resident to River Forest. I've lived here 3 years after having lived in Oak Park since 1958. I read the local paper, so even though I haven't been here that long, I've been aware of what was going I'd like to say that you should vote no. And I'm going to suggest why. But before I do, I would like the audience, everyone who is here who agrees with me and wants the board to vote no, would you please raise your hand? Thank you. Continuing with Marty Paris of Sedgwick Properties on this project is a bad bet, and here's a few of the reasons why. $635K in contractors' liens for non-payment as of 7/20. And I'm not sure if that's still it. Maybe it's less, maybe it's more, but as of 7/20, that was the figure. 36K in fines to the Village of River Forest for code violations. Notice of foreclosure dated 5/25 of this year by Beverly Bank to reclaim $4.2 million of a $20 million line of credit. Unpaid property taxes of over $25K. Marty Paris has no money in the project, no skin in the game, and nothing to lose if it fails. Now, I'm not saying he should have money, and I don't know if developers typically do invest their own money. Perhaps they don't. I'm simply saying that there's no consequence to him other than maybe his business reputation if this fails. This project is not a one-off. Another example is Sedgwick's Roan project in River North, which in 2021 had $1.4 million in contractors' liens. The village seems to be continuing to excuse bad performance at the community's expense. They say insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I believe it's time to change the narrative, and all those who showed up this evening have voted their own vote. I thank the board for allowing me to speak. And I hope everyone else who comes up here will make different points, and that we don't beat this to death.
Yeah.
And that we're polite, and that we don't talk during the board's portion. I have to say, if in Oak Park, this would never have been permitted, and I'm surprised you haven't ejected the people that were yelling at you when it was your turn to talk.
That's right.
You're allowing me a chance to talk. And I'd like to make one other comment on the previous topic, because we had similar issues in Oak Park. I lived at the 1200 block of Marion. We had a two-way stop at Lemoyne, and they'd come off of Harlem and blow it. Every street along North Avenue is cul-de-saced off, for good or for bad. We asked for a four-way stop. They put up a four-way stop sign. Nobody stops at stop signs, they roll through. I would call the Oak Park Police every once in a while, every few months when it got bad, and they would park a police car there and ticket, and things would get better for a while. There's no good answer. You do what you can. There's some good, there's some bad out of it. But Oak Park has the same problem, and perhaps you might chat with their traffic group and see if there's any new or different ideas. Probably not. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. And thank you for staying within 5 minutes, and thank you for asking not to repeat and be succinct. Those are very good points. So again, the second one I got is William Bulkey.
Good evening. Bill Belkey, I live at 534 Lathrop Avenue. And sorry, Louise, but I do have some of the same issues, but I'll be very brief. I want to discuss, of course, the upcoming vote on the extension to the building permit. And I hope that the board will fully discuss the publicly available information so that all misinformation can be clarified and any rumors can be dispelled. I believe this transparency will assist the board in gaining support for their decision. In my opinion, the Lake and Lathrop project has failed. It seems obvious to me for the following 9 reasons, and some of them are the same ones that Louise had. The developer has defaulted on the Beverly Trust mortgage line of credit that was financing the project, and that's number one. Number two, the property is in foreclosure. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars in liens held against the property. A Liz pendants has been filed against the property. Property taxes on the project are delinquent. The developer has been fined thousands of dollars levied by the village and has not paid a substantial portion. The work site and surrounding property has not been maintained by the developer. The work site is not secure, and there has been inconsistent progress with many long unexplained delays. I do not understand why the board is actually voting on this fourth extension, which requires the developer to obtain financing by September 15th of this year, 3 weeks, and to resolve the litigation with Beverly Trust. That will obviously be impossible. If it's a strategic move to somehow avoid future litigation, if you could please tell us that that's what the situation is. I don't know. Beyond that, I believe that each of these issues that I presented should be fully discussed by the board before making a decision on the extension. And as fiduciaries of the taxpayers' funds, I also believe that it would be appropriate to discuss the other financial aspects of this development. Starting off with the $1.940 million of River Forest taxpayer TIF funds that were provided to Sedgwick Properties. Is there a full accounting of funds provided to Sedgwick, and is it available to the public? I also think it would be appropriate to discuss in this forum the details surrounding the lawsuit filed by Beverly Trust, which placed the project in the foreclosure process. Has the board obtained and reviewed the affidavit of complaint filed by Beverly Trust, which outlines the reasons for initiating the lawsuit against the developer? Will the board consider the fact that the project is about to be foreclosed in making their decision? Another concern that really gets to me, I guess, is the outstanding mechanic liens filed by contractors hired by the developer. How is it possible that with $1,940,000 in TIF funds and a $20 million line of credit from Beverly Trust, how is it possible that the developer was unable to pay local small business owners who have completed contracted work? Please include that in your discussion. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Yep. So, I have Phyllis next.
Hi, I'm Phyllis Rubin at 411 Ashland, just southwest of Lake and Lake. So I want to remind you of the September 2017 board meeting on this topic. This was a situation at the time with the comments by the then board. The agreement you voted yes to stated that monthly reports would be required so that if things fell behind, the village would know about it. Sedgwick did not do that then. It's not doing it now. You have it in the current resolution, and you're, I guess, very proud about it. What makes you think they're going to do it tomorrow? And at that board meeting, when a board member was concerned about this requirement, you said, Kathy, well, we've never had dates in the agreement before. The dates didn't make any difference, did it? Kathy said to Marty Paris, as a resident of River Forest, you will have a special affinity for this project. I'm glad it's you. Do you think he has an affinity for River Forest? Is he complying with the agreements? More about this affinity later. Trustee Corsini said, she was very powerful, don't disappoint us. Don't disappoint the residents. Don't come back to this table because it won't be pretty, and I don't want to vote on this again. Now, I know she's not here, but she was the board at the time. She was on the board. She spoke for who you are, you have followed her. Trustee Cargy said they just got the changes to the agreement to us today. This is what they voted on in 2017. There is no urgency at all in how Cedric responds. There is no design yet. You've been sitting on this deal for a long time. We sent the proposed amendment to you in July, and you didn't get it back to us until August. You are not willing to pay your own employees for the architecture. We've got so much time invested in this project now, everything defers your commitment until all the ducks are lined up. The village bears all the risk in this case. And you voted yes to, the permits and allowing them to go forward. So, board, does it look like Cedric respects you? You continually set expectations. Have they met them in good faith? Or do they meet them at the last minute to keep the project going? Sometimes they do that. And do they literally blow past other ones? Well, they do blow past them because they've got this $36,000 in fines for code violations and violations of the permits. So you've been here before. And by the way, the $36,000, this agreement, if you vote yes, will forgive them $34,000 of those fine money in return, I believe, for them to report to you monthly. You gonna try that again? This is like giving Marty Paris, who I know is here, a present for accruing the violation fines. I'm not sure what you're thinking. Does it even seem like they're anxious to get this job done? They probably do want it done. They just can't do it. You have been an amazingly easy mark. I'm a psychologist, and I see your relationship with Cedric similar to a very dysfunctional family. They are the child who tests the parent and finds out that they can get away with pretty much anything. You are like the parent who says, put your cell phone away, leaves, comes back in 15 minutes, says, put your cell phone away, leaves, comes back in 15 minutes, and the cell phone never gets put away. This is what's been happening. You don't follow through. And you're now considering giving them yet another chance. What on this good earth would make you think that your expectations will get done now? You're like an ineffectual parent, and I fear that you've taught Marty Paris that he can really ignore the limits that you keep setting and thinking they're going to work. And other developers are likely watching and will expect similar leeway in the future. This is not good for us. Going back to, Kathy, what you said, that Marty is a River Forest resident and will have affinity for this project, where does his affinity show? Please tell us where you think it shows. I don't think we see it. Instead, it looks like he feels like he has an in with the board. That's the only explanation I can have with this. A board that will overlook all the warning signs that say, stop investing time and money with this developer. There is no good faith here. Somebody mentions the Sanchez.
Phyllis, we're already at 5.
Is it 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's over 5 minutes. It's 5:30.
Oh, it is? I
Yep.
timed it.
So
It
if
was
you
4
get-
minutes. Okay.
No worries.
All right. I'm clearly for a no vote. This is going to be your legacy, guys, and we're not going to forget it.
Thank you, Phyllis. All right. All right, so next up is Phyllis Barron? I got that right? Phyllis, did you want to talk?
Not really.
Okay.
I just wanted to tell you that I live at 410 Ashland.
You really have to get to,
You have to.
you can't, okay.
Tell you that it's been obvious to the people that live right there that they're not doing what they should be doing.
Okay, all right, thank you, Phyllis. I appreciate it. Huh?
Do you mind if I go next?
Go ahead. No worries.
I'm Marika Panton again. I have a question to the board, every one of you. 1 second, please. Okay. For purposes of transparency, are any of you on this body, the village board, currently a vested owner of a unit of the Lake and Lathrop property? Can anyone answer that, please?
Well, we'll
For
answer it during
purposes of transparency,
I'm not.
have any of you purchased or via down payment outright purchase of one of these units?
Right. We'll answer it while we talk to the trustees.
Number 2,
Yep.
do any of you have relatives or bankers who have, hold 1 second, I lost my place. Who you bank with have invested in this project and are currently foreclosing on this project? Question 3, why has the village renewed permits for a property that's in litigation?
Yep, okay.
The residents of River Forest need the truth told, because at some point, all the owners will be listed on the Cook County Public Records, and we'll be able to see who has purchased any of these properties. Finally, why would you allow these permits to continually be issued while there is, like I said, that foreclosure litigation? Were 16 units pre-sold? Do we know that answer? I'm saying no to Lake and Lathrop.
Thank you, Marika. All right. All right, thank you. Pamela Lyons. No, I'm good. You're good, okay. I'm sorry, I can't read this, 407 Ashland. That's me, and I'm good. Okay, all right, good. All right, Lewis, 417 Lathrop.
Hello, Louis Reek, 417 Lathrop. I sent in some comments through the website, but I'll just, in the interest of time and everything, I'll just kind of very quickly go through them. And unlike the previous discussion on all the traffic, seems like everybody's in agreement on this. So we hope you will be as well. Regarding the Lake and Lathrop redevelopment, it's time to acknowledge the current developer is unable or unwilling to complete the project in an efficient, timely, and forthright manner. At best, the developer has been only marginally honest with its capabilities to complete the project per the agreed-upon targets. I realize the board may feel it has no other options at present, but please do not demonstrate poor judgment by continuing to push forward with the developer. I live across the street from the project, and I can assure you all that the project is not currently and never has proceeded on a pace that will result in a successful conclusion. My working experience has led me to firmly believe that if one pursues questionable transactions with questionable counterparties, no successful outcome will result. It's time to acknowledge a failed current status and pursue other alternatives, however bleak the horizon may currently seem. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Chris Saviano. Chris?
Chris Saviano, 411 Ashland. I live on the 5th floor, and all my windows face the project. And I've come to peace with the fact that I'm going to lose the view, but I can't come to peace with the fact that there's a personal involvement. I have a parking space right next to the building, and the day I had hip replacement surgery, I got splashed by the concrete being poured for that. And I was just happy that the detailer was able to save the paint job. But that made it personal. And I know it's a temptation to say that this is business and it's not personal, but that's a cinematic fiction that hides the fact that people pressure other people to be part of something that may not be good. And it's important for someone to say, hey, I'm a good guy, and I'm going to stand up and say no. A short story, my grandmother, actually my great-grandfather 105 years ago had a shop in Little Italy. And the police officer would come by on a daily basis for his gratuity. And my grandmother, a 17-year-old girl, told her father to stay in the back. And when he came for his tip, the protection money, she took a fish and slammed it across his face and put a gash in there that bled. And 35 years later, she saw that man at a wedding and saw that gash, knowing that he remembered her because he never came back. He left them alone. And they were able to continue their lives without that hanging over them. But she was the good guy that day. She said no more.
Yeah.
Okay? You have the job and you've seen the support for people to stand up and say no more. You don't have in your toolbox a fish. We don't have in our toolbox a fish, but we have a way of making people remember. And we will remember. Good luck. The documents, I'm a professional real estate person. I take term sheets, I take weapons of legal stacks and convert them into things that the parties can understand and choose and make informed decisions. I don't have time to do that now. You've worked hard to make sure that the village's interests are protected, and I wish you well, and I hope you make a dignified decision.
All right, Lawrence Garber. Lawrence?
I'm Lawrence Garber. I live at 411 Lathrop. I sent in my comments to the trustees, and so you will have a chance to read all of what I wrote. But I will say just a couple things. In February, I have it all right here to read. In February 2020, my wife and I moved from Indiana to River Forest. We like living in River Forest. What we don't like is what's happening across the street. Before we moved to River Forest in fall of 2019, we actually looked at the plans for this development. And after looking at it carefully, we decided that the project was not going to be completed in a timely fashion. And we were not interested in renting an apartment until it was done. Thank goodness we made a good decision. However, we never thought that this project in August of 2023 would be essentially nothing happening. It is time to realize that this is a failed project. Let us move forward. Let us find another developer or maybe start over from scratch. Make it a green park. Thank you.
All right, Ed McDivitt. Ed? Is Ed here? I didn't see him. Oh, Judith. Yeah, sorry. I didn't think I saw Ed. Sorry, Judith. No, we've got more. I shouldn't have assumed it was Ed. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Judith McDevitt. I live at 411 Ashland Avenue. My next door neighbor is Chris Saviano, who just heard, and I don't have a fish for you either. But I do have some comments that nobody else has made yet. One of the things I think about, this is a TIF district that was supposed to bring benefits to our village and new taxes. And I can't help thinking about the taxes that we would have had all these years that have been wasted on from the owners of those nice new apartments and the shops that were going to go in there. They would be paying taxes, and these are things that would benefit our schools and the other things, the other public benefits that we're supposed to be having, among other things that tax dollars do. So that's one thing that's gone, and there's no way to replace those. The slow pace of completion is just ridiculous. The reports of thousands of in liens and fines against the builder is very concerning. Worrying that failing will be costly, and that's one thing that might be giving you pause. Does the village carry insurance if the project fails and the developer defaults? Or is the village liable for something, for some of this? Who will be liable? Who's going to pay for this? There's only a foundation there. And then also how far behind the project is. There were 7 steps laid out in in February 2022, they laid out 7 steps that they would be taking and be done by July of this year. And they're only on step 2. So that's how far behind they are. The last thing is that it really bothers me that I can go to Oak Park and see how downtown Oak Park is just flourishing since the pandemic. There's restaurants, there's public art, there's imaginative designs on the buildings, there's nice places to eat, there's a Thursday night out. Lake and Lathrop was supposed to be the jewel, the crown jewel of River Forest. We were supposed to have a nice shops to go to, and attractive places for people to live, a few people to live. I don't see how we can continue to go forward. I would be very disappointed, and frankly, if any of you are running for election again and you vote yes on this and extending that, I'm not voting for you.
All right. All right, so we've got, and Margie?
I'm Margie Seconder, 531 River Oaks Drive. Tonight you all are asked to approve a 9th version of the redevelopment agreement, the RDA, originally dated March of 2016, and again extend the permit, although the village website states that the last permit was the final permit. The developer has been in default, not will be in default. He is in default. A further amended RDA is a piece in the march to pass village assets and funds to the developer or the lender. The new RDA gives away more village rights and claims. It drops the final NFR, no further remediation, to vent to the roof. It states a 3-month extension in addition to the 1 year. It leaves the commercial build-out open-ended, totally. It's unclear and vague the way it was written, and it omits reimbursement fines, demolition expenses, and village expenses to date. Some board members refer to this as a private development, but this is a public-private development and has been. with using the $1.9 million of TIF funds from the Town Center 2 ending 2010, which was 13 years ago, plus various village-paid cleanup costs, developers' marketing costs, staff time, subsidies to move businesses like the skincare company that was moved to the Madison Street TIF to Marty Paris's uncle's facility that may eventually have to be moved again and subsidized when that area is redeveloped. And $550,000 was paid to the Oak Park Township assessor for the parcels that he or his trust owned. The reference to private is because the village gave away the clawback provision February 2nd of 2022 and subordinated the village claims to Beverly Bank. And I encourage the audience to look up in the county clerk's website. You can track many of the documents. First, the clawback was added earlier, then it was removed. But when residents questioned the clawback removal at the time, the then village attorney, Greg Smith, October of 2021, stated the village retains its rights and claims. In total, how much has this village spent in direct and indirect costs for this development? Why the extensions again and again over the last 5 years? Why? The developer's business practices have been consistent. And Marty Paris, I appreciate you being here. We would like to see you more often, obviously. There have been delays, blames on others. The construction schedule blames the lender. That's in the packet. There are repeated citations and fines for unsafe work site, delinquent property taxes, mechanics liens at this site and other developments of his, the foreclosure that's already been mentioned for violating the loan agreement. 2 tax bills are sent to Ed Ditchfield, who died in 2015. They still post it, and the county treasurer has posted, please flag us. They flagged it online. What has been built in the 33 months at the permit ending June 2021, or the 18 months since the last permit? The business model doesn't fit. That's the ultimate problem. Sales are $850,000 to $2 million for 1,000 to 3,000 square foot units. Neighbors are selling for $400,000 to $850,000 on 2,000 and 3,000 square foot units. 30-year mortgage rates, when the permit expired the first time, were under 3%. Today, they're 7.25%. The developer likely isn't selling units and may be in trouble. The developer is telling prospective buyers occupancy of December of 2024. He won't meet a 2024 occupancy. The retail build-out is totally open-ended in your new amended proposal, projected to go to 2026 or beyond, 3 years from now. And he may flip to apartments. The RDA directs open book policy with the village. Today, how many units have contracts with non-related village board and staff? How many commercial letters of intent are current in the last 12 months? Is the developer is here tonight. I'm glad to see that. Why
RJ, I'm going to ask you to wrap it up. It's 5:30. So right now.
Why extend again? I'll skip some of mine, but most importantly, I did an analysis on the lost property taxes to the community by looking at relative nearby units and commercial spaces. In addition to the 2 or 2.5 or 3 million we've already put into it from TIF funds, et cetera, there's another $2 million of lost property tax since the original permit expired of June of 21 through 2026. $2 million net of what the developer pays on the vacant land, which is minor. So total, 4.5 million, maybe 5 million we have in this. The schools portion is $1.5 million. Why aren't they more vocal?
Now we're at 6, so I'm going to have to ask you to stop, please, Margie. And we're more than happy to take your public comment and put it in the record.
Thank you.
Okay, so not that, just trying to be respectful
Thank
for
you.
everybody's time. Thank you, Margie. Okay. I have Angie. Angie, okay.
Hi, I'm Angie Cedar from 739 William. I don't need to add anything, everyone, in terms of like what's been going on, but I did want to read this statement on behalf of Eric Riggle, who put money down on a Lake and Lathrop unit, but in the end withdrew. I think it's important for the trustees to hear this. I asked him to share why he and his wife were looking at River Forest, and as well as what went into their decision to withdraw. So the following are his words. First, we were and still are very interested in living in Oak Park River Forest area. We love the area with the quaint downtown areas. It is close to the new building I leased in Elk Grove Village, easy access to public transportation downtown, and priced right in my opinion. The area reminds us of where we live now, Hudson, Ohio. As my wife and I are empty nesters, we were looking for more of an apartment or flat, which the Lake and Lathrop project checked all the boxes for us in that regards. On paper, it looked to be a beautiful property. Two things stood out to us as red flags. First was the high pressure to get us under contract. It seemed odd to us, but we're not from Chicago, so figured it must be the way things are done here. Second, was the inability of the developer to commit to a completion date. It moved around a lot during negotiations, and in the end, it was far too open-ended for us to wait for nearly 2 years for the move-in. Additionally, I had visited another site this developer was working on, and it was also very late and behind schedule, which made the move-in date of December 2024 seem even more unrealistic. They did return the earnest money with no issue. For now, Christy and I are on hold to move to Chicago, not because of this experience, but trying to figure out the when of the move and how it ties to my development. When we get it figured out, I'm sure River Forest will be the front runner. We love the area and can't say enough good things about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Angie. And then we have Ken. Ken Weiss? Okay, thank you, Ken.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you tonight. My name is Ken Weiss. I live at 411 Ashland with my wife Pam. We live on the 5th floor and we have a unique view of the project. We have a bird's eye view of what's not going on. My concern regarding the extension of the permit is since the issuance of the permit, latest version 18 months ago, no substantial work has been accomplished until a flurry of work now ended which created about 4 incomplete elevator shafts, 1 level of a parking deck, and the previous contractors only had 2 or 3 people on work at any given time. I believe Pepper took over, and within 4 weeks, with a flurry of effort and 18 people sometimes on site, they got that deck poured in and more of the footings for the piers for the residential area. And then there are also masons working. So in this 8-week period out of the last 18 months, something happened that people noticed. Otherwise, there was never anything there. There was a lot of dirt being pushed around. You might remember having to replace the dirt because the dirt was bad. Well, we watched all that dirt get hauled away. All the current contractors of the property vacated 2 weeks ago. Everything is done there. This time they've even taken all the heavy equipment away. The developers' advertisements for the project refer to the walking lifestyle. Those of us in the area have had a walking lifestyle until the project started. We have schools, churches, food store, doctor's offices, all at our walking convenience. That is, of course, unless you have to walk past this project. We currently have loose plywood pieces to walk over on the Ashland side, which, by the way, is where the children have to walk to get to the crossing to go to school.
The Lathrop side has a subsiding loose gravel-filled area where an aborted attempt to tie the utilities in, which still are not on the property. I can't wait for this winter, since this contractor has a long history, and I believe violations, for failing to keep the sidewalks clean and shoveled, and I can't wait to walk across this plywood in the snow. You are now considering another amendment to the multiple other amendments which a developer has failed to meet in any substantive form. They've had trouble in the past in securing loans. They've been revolving door of contractors. The developer has never even remotely met the timelines imposed by ordinance by the permit process and the special use permit of the several previous amendments. The developer owes outstanding taxes, liens, and fines to the village. It is reported they have numerous mechanics liens and loan issues, which brings into question the financial viability of the project. Oak Park, for instance, has had several larger projects completed or substantially completed within this time frame. There must come to a point where the village sees that this project is never going to be completed or done well if it is. How much longer must the current tax-paying residents of the village have to endure the expense, dirt, noise, unsafe sidewalks, and other inconveniences while waiting for this never-ending project to end? Please do not approve the proposed amendment and put merciful end to this ill-conceived project. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the public comment for this item. I'm going to now ask the board to move the motion, second it, and we'll then ask village administrator to discuss the project in detail, and then, of course, we'll invite Marty Paris, our Sedgwick Properties, up to discuss the project along with his team. So that should be, and then we'll discuss it as a board and take a vote on whatever direction you want to take. So with that, I'd ask for a motion and a second on item 9A.
Motion to authorize the execution of a Fourth Amendment to the Second Amended and Stated Redevelopment Agreement for Lake Street and Lathrop Avenues.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So now at this time, I'd ask the village administrator to briefly go through the history of the project and what's proposed in the current amendment.
Okay, so I just put together some points about the history of the project, as many of the residents have mentioned. This does go back some time to when the TIF district was still in place, so I just wanted to kind of have a broader context for what this proposal is, and then I'll go into the details of what is before the board for a vote tonight. So back in March 2010, the village issued an RFP with the intent of using the TIF funds to bring a development to the Lake and Lathrop site. At that time, Keystone Ventures was the only respondent to the RFP. A few months after that, the village reached an agreement with Keystone Ventures, a TIF funds agreement, to make sure that those funds were secured for the project moving forward. A few years later, the village approved a redevelopment agreement with Keystone Ventures, and shortly after had an amendment that brought on Sedgwick as an assignment through Lake and Lathrop Partners. At this time, around the time that Sedgwick was brought on is when the plan development permit process came through. That was approved in 2018. In March 2019, the village approved another amendment that was in preparation for the remediation of the property. The property had significant environmental concerns, and in order for Sedgwick to proceed with the remediation, the village needed to commit to paying for the cost of that remediation if the village were ever to take the property back. Just trying to explain that some of the redevelopment agreements were to try and make the project move forward. Once that was completed, Sedgwick moved forward with the demolition of the properties after kind of a long drawn-out acquisition of a few of those sites that are now assembled for the property. Around this time, the Sedgwick had applied for, with the Illinois EPA, to have their remediation plan, which took some time to review. And between June 2020 and June 2021, the remediation work took place, and then no further remediation letter was received. That's required if you're going to redevelop a property from the Illinois EPA. No work can be done without that. So that brings us to June 2021, a little over 2 years ago. A few months after that was the last redevelopment agreement amendment. This was mentioned by a few of the residents that this is when the village lost that clawback provision. The reason being for that is in order for Sedgwick to receive construction financing, the village needed to remove that provision so that a closing could happen with that construction financing between Beverly Bank and Sedgwick. So that, as part of that redevelopment agreement, also a construction timeline was established. The 18-month building permit, there was a deadline that needed to be completed in February 2022. So that was met, and a building permit was issued in February of 2022. It was an 18-month building permit that expired earlier this month. So that brings us to the proposal before the board today. This is the central piece of this amendment is the issuance of a conditional building permit through August 30th, 2024. I say conditional because there's a few items that need to be met in a few weeks, September 15th, 2023, or otherwise the building permit will be revoked. One of these is proof of viable financing with Beverly Bank or another financer, and also the resolution of their litigation. Many residents reference that litigation. The condition is that the litigation between Beverly Bank and Sedgwick be resolved by September 15th. If it is not, then the building permit is revoked. In addition to that, payment of the permit fee of a little over $98,000 would also need to be received by the village, and also the payment of those property taxes that were also mentioned a few times. So those three items all need to be met by September 15th, otherwise the village will revoke the building permit for the project. In addition to those conditions, there's a couple things that have been added, including the expectation that a representative from Sedgwick will be at every regularly scheduled board meeting to provide an update on the progress for the project. The August 30th, 2024 date was provided by Sedgwick as the date that the residential piece would be completed. If it is not completed, the agreement here explicitly states that the developer will be required to pay $197,000 permit fee extension for only 3 months' time. And then also, they would be required to pay the full outstanding fines for the signed permit violations that were referenced earlier. If they do complete by August 30th, 2024, of all residential units, that fine does decrease to $2,000. That is I know there was a reference to the removal of the no further remediation provision. The project has already received that no further remediation letter, so it's no longer relevant to the project moving forward. But that's the general summary of the agreement. And happy to take any questions.
Good.
Hey,
No,
Matt,
just, we're done public comment. Thank you
Hey,
so
Matt,
much.
there's one piece in there. There was a construction loan in the middle of that also, correct? Before they went to Beverly, there was another construction loan in there that they repaid.
Well,
There was a
right, Old Second.
Right.
bridge loan, yeah.
There was a
Yeah,
bridge
there's a
loan
bridge
from
loan,
Old
right,
Second
right,
Bank.
correct.
So,
Okay, unless there's further questions for Matt, I'm going to ask Cedric, sir, this is our discussion now. I'm sorry. There was public comment. We asked for public comment. Yeah, well, not now. No, I'm
That's
of the
just for the village
trustees.
board, for the
Yeah.
village board.
It's only the board.
So.
Happy to talk after. if you-
Yeah, we could talk after. We'll make sure that it gets on the record.
Matt, I have a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
The taxes, the property taxes that are due, are those all related to this property?
Correct, yes.
Right.
It would be all outstanding property taxes owed on this property, yes.
And how much are they?
I believe it was around $21,000.
21K? And how many years does that cover?
I believe it's just 1 year.
He's paid all the other ones, I think.
Yeah,
Has
it's
he
the,
paid all
it's
the
the
past
most recent, it's the most recent tax bill.
So taxes that were due by when?
It's 2021 second installment, 2022 first installment delinquent.
Okay. Margie, I'm going to ask you, please, otherwise, we're not going to get anything done. And it's, yeah, okay. I'll let the village attorney answer the question.
Well, to the best of my recollection, it's the recent tax bill. Now, if it includes a prior one, it may, but it's not in a position, the current taxes that are owed are not in a position to be sold for taxes. They aren't that late.
So they were due to be paid sometime in 2022, as far as you know?
Yes.
Okay. And is there still something, sorry, I should be
Yeah,
speaking in the
please, thank you.
microphone, pardon me. Is there still something about the village went in and repaired sidewalks and cleaned up the site and incurred costs for that? Is that part of this agreement?
No, that is not part of the agreement.
No.
Because there was an article in the paper that said that the village was going to be passing those costs on to the developer.
Correct. It's not part of this agreement as
Yeah.
proposed.
Yes, hang on, please. Bob, I'm sorry, were you talking? I want to make sure, yeah, go ahead, Lance, and explain what the amount of money that was paid by the village.
So
that we will collect it.
the amount, Matt needs to confirm,
Yeah, so-
it's 15?
15.
Correct. There was a little over $15,000 paid to a contractor
Right,
for the
so,
repair of that site.
so there were sidewalks that the village installed that ostensibly should have been done by the developer, but not until the end of the project, and the village made a decision to replace those. There's a dispute, an ongoing issue as to whether the village would be reimbursed by that. Neither side has given up any rights to that. And to some extent, if the development goes forward and is finished, we'll need to resolve that issue. So it's just not addressed by this, it's not waived by the village, and it's not agreed to by the developer. That 15,000.
Okay, somehow I had 21 down.
I think that was added.
No, the 20,000, I believe, was the property tax.
No, there was a $21,000 invoice that was submitted to Sedgwick that included legal and administrative costs.
Okay, that's it. Yes.
The
So-
actual repairs by a
Okay.
contractor, and then our legal and administrative
Right,
costs all came to
internal.
21K.
Correct.
For the sidewalk issue.
Right, that's right. We sent a bill for 21, but the actual amount paid by the village is the 15.
Except
to
to
the
attorneys,
contractor.
too.
To the contractor, correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we did much legal work on that, but administrative.
Thank you.
Okay, super. All right, thank you, Katie. All right, well, Mark and Marty, welcome to our village board meeting. You've heard the residents, and you will hear from the trustees soon. So we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody, for your time. I know it's late. I'll keep my presentation quick so we can answer questions, but
Yeah, Mark, Mark.
it's on.
Yeah, you really got to
All right, I will
lean into it.
I will get on the mic. All right, so again, we do appreciate everybody's time and participation tonight. We acknowledge Mark McKinney.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
With
go ahead.
Cedric Properties. Sorry?
He just said it.
What's your title? Director of Operations at Sedgwick.
Okay.
So we
Louise,
acknowledge.
I thought we were going to be pleasant. So let's be, I mean, all I ask is, I
Not
know
not
there's a lot
unpleasant,
of
but just-
pent-up
right.
frustration here, and we want to address it. So please, I mean, if you can't hear, just ask, and if you need another, somebody to repeat something, we will, can you hear?
I cannot hear.
Okay,
I didn't hear you.
okay. Very good, thank you. Mark, could you lean into the microphone
My name
and
is Mark
state
McKinney
your
with
name?
Cedric
Yeah.
Properties.
Yep.
Mark McKinney with Cedric Properties. My title is Director of Project Operations. And we certainly acknowledge and the delays and the community fatigue that the project has translated to date. But we are very committed to get it done on the timeline that's been outlined. And I can speak to the history of some of the projects we've had to build in the past that have been very challenging and have been related to unforeseen conditions, environmental issues, et cetera, et cetera. Matt did a nice overview of the history of the project, and those are no small hurdles to have had to get over. And we're happy to have that behind us and more in the throes of the construction process. And I'm not here making excuses, but I would just highlight a few very critical time impacts. What Matt did not mention was in the process of getting the no further remediation, NFR, excuse me. That was in the height of COVID and through the primary process of COVID. Just as we were coming out of winter of '22, we were hit with a concrete strike shortly after, which delayed the project for a couple of months. And of late, the biggest impact is the lender choosing to pull out of the project. But that's just a quick highlight of the delays, but let me fall back to some things I wanted to discuss. Again, Matt did a good, I was going to recap that history of the project and the site, but I think he did a fine job on that. Outside of those progress points and success points of where the site has been brought to date, I would highlight, he mentioned the demolition and demolition process. That did include a recycle program where we took the materials off and had them repurposed for for other purposes, as opposed to just putting them in a landfill. So highlight that as a point of progress. But really, the anchor of the project's success has been the sales, and that's been discussed a couple times tonight. 16 was our last reported number of contracts. Because of what's transpired with the bank and a provision in one buyer's contract, we've had to let one person out. So we sit here today with 15 contracts and 2 pending contracts. We recently combined some units, 2 units to 1 unit, and we've had a lot of interest in that. So we're still working. We have somebody that's interested in that combination of units that we're working through, which would bring us to a total of 17 of the 22 units under contract for a total of over $17 million in sales.
Yeah, thank you, Erica.
I'll get through it.
We don't want you to die.
And so very, very much part of the success of the project. I think we've also brought a very unique and new product to the River Forest market with condos, high-end luxury condos in the 1.4, 1.8 million range, which has been unprecedented in the River Forest market, and as I said, creating kind of a new product. And what really differentiates it, thank you very much. Is the single-story living, the direct elevator access, and the large amount of outdoor terrace space. And in many cases, every unit has at least 2 locations of outdoor space, which really differentiates the product significantly. On the financing side, we are working diligently to secure new financing. Wintrust has not honored their loan commitment, and that has impacted us since last November. We've received new term sheets from banks and credit unions and balance sheet lenders, working, as I said, rigorously to get this financing in place and working toward the deadline that has been set forth. And it is because of those actions of Wintrust and is why we are sitting here today with the liens, as well as some other contractors and suppliers that have not been paid. But we're working diligently through that. On a construction standpoint, I believe everybody's aware of the work that's been in place. With the foundations, I think there's a critical piece as part of this project that I'd also highlight is a very really unseen project within the project, which is the detention system, the stormwater detention system. which we're soon to be putting the lid on after we're getting some underground electrical in place. So but I think everything else otherwise can be seen from the street between the parking structure, the elevators, the west wall, and the majority of the foundations, et cetera. So we've had some good progress, has been mentioned here of late with getting some of these other obstacles out of our way. And we have 70% of the trades of the project, what we call bought, which is basically in place. So we're ready, and what the phase we're in right now, while there's limited activity on site, is getting what we call working drawings completed so that the trades can begin fabrication as we get the work underway. So that includes your decorative stone. If you're familiar with the building, there's a great deal of decorative stone in the building. The 4 elevators, structural steel, which primarily up through the 2nd floor. And then when we get to 2 through roof, there is some structural steel, but it is primarily light gauge framing. And we're in the process of finalizing that scope as well. We are committed to doing the monthly meetings. We have been doing at least project updates with Jeff and Matt, generally on a monthly basis. That, to be candid, that has fallen off a little bit lately, but certainly committed to continuing that. We did just provide an updated schedule. And again, I think it's been cited that the current citation is related to construction, but it's my understanding that the citation is really related to the signage. We had a signage permit as part of the previous RDA, and in the process of transitioning out of the RDA, I think really, to be candid, it was just a misunderstanding that the site needed to then convert to being a permit, or the signage needed to convert to be a permit, and in the process of that, we had been getting this citation. But I believe, my understanding is right now, we do not have any citations specifically related, Matt, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, specifically to a construction issue. Though I do know, we are certainly aware of the Ashland sidewalk that does need to be addressed. So anyway, we've set forth the date of August 24. We're committed to meet that date. We have very good sales to support that goal, and we think this can be just a very successful project. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Mark, before we go into questions, I think, Marty, I'd asked you to address the residents and the trustees as the owner of Sedgwick. Please, just introduce yourself.
My name's Marty Paris. I'm the president of Sedgwick. I'm sure I've seen many of you before in these community meetings. Obviously, I support everything Mark just laid out in his presentation, and our confidence in our ability to finish this project, finish it successfully. I feel personally very strongly that this is a product that's important to River Forest. This type of product doesn't really exist anywhere else in River Forest. Without a product of this nature, River Forest really falls behind its peer communities. This type of say $700,000 to $2 million housing that appeals to an empty nester, single level living, no lawn to take care of, is really a standard in our peer communities, and important for the village to have something like that. So personally, I feel strongly about it. In the event there may have been confusion, in my personal opinions, the market has embraced this product very much. We've probably sold 35 of these units. We stand with, as Mark said, 16 sales and 2 in process. We've sold a unit for $1.8 million, put it under contract for $1.8 million in 2022, which I understand if it would have closed would have been the highest price sale in River Forest in 22. Of course, it was just a contract. Those folks backed out because of crime in River Forest. I think Kathy even got involved in trying to help us sell those folks who lived in Barrington that this was a good, safe community. I think we have 2 other sales over $1.4 million, and we sold one recently for $1.55. So the market has really embraced this. It's a lot of potential new population moving into River Forest. There's been some River Forest buyers, but a lot of people outside of River Forest. Also, just to add to Mark's comments, related to where we are in the construction. The construction hasn't moved as quickly as we'd have liked. This has been a tough project. Sometimes projects are tough. There's the theory of insanity that you keep trying to do the same thing when you're not having success. I kind of think that's a quitter's mantra. This has been a very tough project. We don't intend on quitting on it. We intend on finishing it. We're asking for a permit extension for an additional 12 months to allow us to finish it. We do have a tough financing hurdle that we have to get over. We're very unhappy with Wintrust's decision not to honor their construction contract and stop funding. As Mark noted, the funding stopped in November of last year, so all the progress we made is without a pay app being funded. We have December, January, February, March, April, May, June, and July approved pay apps pending with the lender, who's been unwilling to fund those despite their contractual obligations. That's a different problem. We hope we could work something out with Wintrust. If we can't, we have backup lenders that are interested and willing to come in to help us solve the problem. So really just adding to all the things Mark said, just one more little bit in the line of construction. He was trying to communicate that we, and I think he did it reasonably well, but I just want to reiterate, we go through a shop drawing process for long lead time items that need to be manufactured, like decorative stone, like steel. Both of those shop drawings are completed, and both of those materials have moved from a shop drawing stage, which is when the manufacturers create their drawings to build from and then put that product into manufacture so that we get it on site to put it in place. Both of those are through shop drawings. Elevators are through shop drawings and manufacturing. One of the last big components we're working through shop drawings are in the light gauge steel. That is in the shop drawing process and will be completed shortly as well. So we have a lot of positive things going on and a lot of work still ahead of us to do. We appreciate the support we've had from the Village of River Forest and the residents that have supported us, and we think it's going to be a great project and a great project for our business and a great project for the Village of River Forest. Thank you.
All right, at this time then, I'd like to have you guys stay there because I'm going to open it up to questions from the trustees regarding anything from the past, the current. So I'll open it up. Go ahead, Ken.
Yes, so I appreciate what you're attempting to do. Obviously, it's nice, but if it's not going to get done, what difference is what that nice thing would look like, make? But the question for you is, I don't even thinking of it. You heard the residents. They raised about four main questions. And whether the residents know this or not, we've been working diligently to try to solve those exact questions. So I would like you to clarify, although we already heard from Matt specifically. I'll give you the issue, and you tell us what you expect to do by the 15th. So the first one is the notice of foreclosure. You plan to do what by the 15th on that?
Either work something out with Wintrust where we continue for them to finance the construction, or put a new lender in place to complete the construction loan.
And we are agreed that that's about 15 days from now, right? So you feel confident in that?
That's one of the toughest challenges we have in front of us, but that's what we intend to do.
Okay, the second one, could you address the mechanics liens?
Just simply, the mechanics liens are a result of the construction lender not funding the pay apps that are pending.
If you got a new loan, would that take care of the mechanics liens or not?
Well, the mechanics liens are insured over, so the lender's insured, but the majority of the mechanics liens are approved fundings that are just pending funding, approved pay requests that are pending funding.
Right. So, in my experience, mechanics liens are based on workers not receiving a certain payment, and therefore they file a lien to protect their interest, right?
Look, mechanics liens are a leverage play because it allows the subcontractors to encumber the owner when they don't have a contract with the owner. They have a contract with the general contractor, but the law provides that they can encumber the owner through the Mechanics Lien Act. so they use it for leverage.
I would disagree that that's the only way they use them, but we can debate that another time. The property taxes.
Property taxes are all in on approved pay apps. It's the second installment of 21 that came out late and I think was due early in 23, and the first installment of 22 that was due in the first half of 23.
Okay.
My understanding of the property taxes, and those are on the pay apps pending funding.
Okay. One thing that, I just want to say that, when we last spoke, or I specifically last spoke, you were at a meeting, we expected you to come to all these meetings. Instead, you kind of put us in a situation where we had to face, I call it the wrath of Phyllis, because she was at every meeting telling us what we were doing wrong with this property. So, what kind of confidence do we have that you're going to show up and not leave us high to dry again at these meetings?
Well, I think we'll have it documented in the agreement that we're going to show up at the meetings. So that's our plan, to show up, because that's what we say we plan to do.
Yeah, you said that at the last one as well, but okay, I'll go ahead and let him.
Okay. Are you finished, Ken?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay, very good.
So I got a couple, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So who's your general contractor going forward on this?
Alpha Construction Services, the general contractor.
And that's part of your organization, right?
It's an affiliated entity.
Okay. What have you done, or what are you doing as we talk about, we're at August, you've got till September 15th. Can we expect to see some type of winter conditions work set up there, so you're working through the winter?
In general, I would expect the construction continue through the winter. Some of it's more difficult in the winter. I don't know if any of it's easier during the winter, but it wouldn't be intended that we would shut down construction during the winter.
So, so kind of the elephant in the room, if you will. So what happens if you don't get your financing? So what's our next step after that?
It's not his
Or your
question,
next
that's our
step.
question.
Right.
We would pursue the.
Well, he has a question. He has a question now. He's the
Go ahead,
individual going
answer
out
it.
getting the
Right.
financing. So what's kind of your plan from there?
After we get the financing, it's finish building the building.
that was
If we don't
what-
get the financing, then we have to find out what the next alternative is.
Well, that's what I said, it's really our question. Yeah, come on, that's easy. Anything else, Bob?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for,
Well,
go ahead, Russ.
I was just going to ask, Mr. Paris, the September 15th date was something you proposed for your financing?
It was a date that was talked through in negotiating the agreement.
Okay, so I assume negotiated means that you accepted to get the financing, or a commitment to get the financing by September 15th, right?
That was the agreement we were able to negotiate.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say, well, first of all, going back to Trustee Johnson's question on mechanics lien, if you do get financing, the financier, the new one, is going to make sure you pay off all the mechanics liens, or they're going to cover it. Someone's going to cover it. They're not going to take or issue a loan with all these outstanding mechanics liens. Is that correct?
The mechanics liens would have to be resolved or some other way accounted for. Yes, they won't just be ignored. Correct.
Okay. And so I guess what I'm saying then is you're thinking you are going to be able to get this lending by September the 15th. My only question after that is, if you don't get it by the 15th, then you're not planning to come back to us for another extension, are you?
If we don't have the financing by September 15th, we'll do whatever the best plan is to move the project forward.
Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
No, I'm not being facetious, Marty. I just want to know, what does that mean? You're still going to somehow finish the project even though you don't get the lending?
Well, look, we obviously can't build the project without a permit to build it, so we'd have to work out how we're gonna work through that.
And if we say, no, we're not going to give you the permit after that unless you finish the project, what are you going to, what are you gonna do?
I don't know that I could foretell the future on it, but obviously we're going to look for the best resolution for the development and the best thing for the village, right? That's your guys' interest is trying to find the best outcome for the village. Our interest is trying to complete a good development.
I guess, Marty, I'm trying to ask you and trying to probe that I guess I don't want you to think, at least I'm just speaking for myself, that after September 15th, if you're unable to get the financing, I'm not inclined to extend it beyond that. This is done, so to speak. I want to impress that with you because, as you heard from everybody here, they're under, obviously, we're all under pressure. I mean, I'm going backward. Most of the trustees, I won't even say Trustee Johnson, that we've been sitting here every month for the last 18 months, and I'm not going to pick on Phyllis, but it wasn't only Phyllis. Let me just say other people have asked that. So, and there are a number of times that we've been asking, where are you guys? And we're just sitting here like we're not able to justify getting answers to the residents. And so, and I know we're putting this in agreement, and I know that for a fact because I was the one who asked that it be put in this agreement because I wanted to make sure you guys are going to be committed to coming here every month. Because if I'm going to hear from a resident, you guys got to be here because you're the ones answering the questions on that development. And so I want to make sure that happens, but I also want to make it clear that September 15th is the deadline. It's a deadline. I don't want you to think that you can come back after that. And I know, and I can understand residents are going to say, listen, Russ, we heard that from before. And I understand from Corsini, and yes, those comments were being made. My only point is that we are coming to September 15th at a very short period, that we're going to get the answer to whether you can continue or not. So, and I want to emphasize that with you. So, Mr. Perez, hopefully you can get your financing or whatever you need to get it done by the 15th. So that's all.
All right, thank you, Russ. I'll make comments later.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Erica.
I do want to just piggyback on a couple of these questions. You answered today who your general contractor was, and you acknowledged that it's an affiliate, and that happens in construction and development all the time. The last time we asked that question from you all, you wouldn't respond to us. You wouldn't tell us what that was. I had to Google it while we were talking here to just even understand that. And I think that's part of what you're hearing from the trustees is that it's very difficult to get information from you. It's very difficult to hear why are the delays. So you talked about delays for this construction and development. Can you just reiterate those again?
I think I can add
into the mic, please.
But the list was COVID, which had more of an impact on the remediation process. Coming into the year, we had the 2-month strike, a concrete laborer strike. We also had found that was not on any survey, some underground utilities. I didn't mention that before, but that had caused an impact of addressing some things, getting a gas line off the site and addressing an electrical line that was on the site, unbeknownst to us. And then the one really, since the end of last year, which we've talked about, is the financing.
Okay. I guess I'm curious, if you knew there were delays, why didn't you come to this board table and say, listen, we've got these delays, here's why, this is happening, so we would be able to answer to the residents and we could have some understanding of what was going on in the project. You guys never came to tell us these things. And that's part of what you agreed to do, whether it was in writing or not, is to let us know how is it going and to be able to answer to the residents.